It's the final day of preliminaries in the Aimchess Rapid, and for players like Anish, Giri, it's gonna be a dramatic day. He is currently in that crucial 8th place and will have to score points today, because right outside top 8 is players like David, Anton and several other players. They will have to win their games today to qualify for the knockout stage.
This move I have never seen before.
It's now or never for Giri. We've got to call that Prag style.
They're playing like stockfish.
But he's gone for it.
White hanging on, and he's dropped a bishop.
Dropped his bishop.
Handsome mistake.
This is so difficult.
Whoa! Oh!
No way!
Magnus has logged off. What has happened?
Magnus has resigned.
Magnus Carlsen. He is the winner of the Julius Baer Generation Cup. Only 3 rounds of chess to be played in the preliminaries of the Aimchess Rapid, and after today, 8 players will leave us and 8 players will go through to the knockout stage. And to guide us through this final crucial day of preliminaries, Grandmaster David Howell, International Master Lawrence Trent and International Master Jovanka Houska. And Jovanka, you've noticed a lot of those players around that crucial 8th place. They face each other today.
They do, so it's going to be a real scrap. You know, we have Anish, he faces off against David Anton, who's in 9th place. We also have Vidit in the chasing pack, and he faces off against Richard Rapport. And then they all face each other, and it's going to be so, so exciting.
Yes. We do love these days, David, and it's a lot of fun, right? Because those players right outside and around 8th place, they basically have to win games, must-win situations.
Exactly, no more safety-first chess, which we don't really enjoy watching. It's all about taking massive risks now, and it's basically a win or nothing for a bunch of those players, and that always gives us entertaining chess.
Yeah. What is it like, do you think, for these players, Lawrence, to be must-win? And for players like Anish, Giri in 8th place, who likes to play a little safe maybe. Today, maybe he needs to score some wins.
Well, I mean, yesterday he said after he made that quick draw, and we were all very critical of him, saying, why are you making a draw there? Now he finds himself at the, you know, right in the mix there. He's not safe at all, of course. And is he going to rue the decisions he made yesterday? And maybe it's a lesson for everybody that taking quick draws is not really the way forward. You've got to fight till the very last breath.
Yeah. And Magnus Carlsen, he hasn't been in top shape this tournament, but he is 99% sure to qualify. This is a picture he posted on Instagram earlier today. Should this be a sign, David, that he's finally feeling well again, that the cold is over and he will be playing some good chess today?
Normally, for any other player, I would say yes, but I know Norwegians very well. They go outdoors just to relax, just to recover. So Magnus getting some fresh air. I think all of the players, they will have been training in their different ways, and he actually has a big role to play today, Magnus. He plays a couple of those players aiming to qualify just below the top 8 spots.
Wow, it's going to be a cool day. Now, yesterday, Magnus Carlsen, he struggled a little bit, and in the very first round, he lost to Gukesh after a massive blunder, and that was the 3rd time this season he loses to an Indian teenager.
Whoa.
What happened?
Something's happened. It did feel a bit wrong for Magnus to play this move. I actually thought Magnus had something a bit stronger.
Is the queen trapped?
Wow. Lawrence, the queen is actually trapped in the center.
And the queen on b6 protects the e6 pawn. That's that's a crucial thing, yeah.
Oh, so that's the real threat.
Just like a house of cards, his position just completely fell apart.
It is over. Magnus Carlsen loses to another Indian teenager.
Whoa.
And-
I was just about to say.
You found something.
I mean, I'm not checking a computer, but my first instinct here is this drops a piece to d6.
Push the pawn, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
And here we go. The pass pawn has been created. That's going to tie down the black bishop. Next, the white king's going to move out the way. The white rook's going to come. And actually, the black king is coming under serious attack, potentially. Gukesh resigns.
Yeah.
Yep.
Moves his queen across.
Oh.
Threat of checkmate in 2 moves on the board. What is Magnus doing? I mean, maybe it's just genius. Wow, the evaluation bar shoots up. 1 second for Nils. Made a move with a few seconds left. Now
Here
he
it
brings the
comes.
queen up. We're going to see resignation any moment. The queen is coming. The king is trapped. Checkmate. Magnus does take the win. We can flick in a check with this knight.
Yeah.
We just win material, right?
Yeah, this is just winning.
He's going back. No, Anish, don't repeat.
No.
It's happening.
What? White is better.
Such a weird.
White has an advantage, and he just bails out with a draw. He can play on with no risk.
He's not risking anything, so making a draw there is fundamentally, I think, a mistake.
Only 1 point in that game means Anish Giri is stuck on 18 points. That is the same as Richard Rapport, and these are the 2 players in 7th and 8th place. Above them, Nodirbek Abdusatorov. He was in the lead the first few days of the tournament, but struggled yesterday, and now down to 6th place with 20 points. He should feel rather safe to qualify, but not 100%. Magnus Carlsen on 21 points. That is the same as Erigaisi and Gukesh, the 2 Indian teenagers. Shakhriyar Mamadiyaro, he played a fantastic tournament so far, and he's on 23 points. Jan-Krzysztof Duda on top of the table with 25. And right outside top 8, fighting to qualify for the knockout stage, is players like David Anton, like Vidit. Also with a slight chance is Daniel Naroditsky. And now joined by the statsman, Ty Zimmerman. Nice to see you again, Ty.
Great to be here.
So I'll ask you right away, Ty, who is safe to qualify right now?
Probably the top 6. Definitely the top 2. Duda and Shak are completely 100% in. They could lose all 3 of their games, and there's still no scenario where they're left out. But really, any of the top 6 are a favorite to qualify, even if they lose all 6 games, or even if they lose all 3 games today. They would have to have a horrible day and get unlucky with the other results to be in any real trouble. But Rapport and Giri do have some work to do to lock up those last 2 spots, with Anton and Vidit being the most likely challengers.
Yeah. Anish Giri now on 71%. So he was playing yesterday in a game against Daniel Naroditsky where the bar was over to his side. Our experts were saying, oh, this is winning chances for Anish. He decided out of the blue to take a draw in that game. How much does that affect his chances if he would have won that game and gotten 2 more points?
Yeah, those 2 points would have been big. He'd be at 92% right now instead of 71%. So that, if he could have gotten that win, it would have really improved his chances a lot and made him much safer. But the downside for us would have been we wouldn't get this game with him and Anton that's super critical in this round. So it's more fun for us that it's close, but it definitely would have been great for him to win that game.
Oh, absolutely. And first round, as you mentioned, Anish Giri against David Anton. If David Anton wins that game, he will be on the same score, 18 points as Anish Giri. How does that change the projected results for preliminaries?
Yeah, if Anton wins that game, then his odds of qualifying are up to 60% and Anish down to 37%. The problem Anish has is that if he doesn't win this game against Anton, who's chasing him, his next game's against Magnus, and then he has to play Arjun. So if he's caught, if he loses and Anton's putting pressure on him there, then those last two games are real tough.
Wow. And I also want to ask you about two other players outside the top 8. Vidit on 14 points and the big American favorite Daniel Naroditsky also on 14 points. I guess they have to win most of the games, but I do see you give them a slight % chance to qualify.
They've definitely got chances, and the fact that they each get a shot at one of the players on 18 is big, right? Because if Anton beats Giri, he's right back in it. He's actually a favorite to qualify. And Vidit gets the same scenario in the next round when he plays Rapport. So, yeah, they both have extra chances because of those matchups.
Very cool.
If they can win them.
Very cool. Now, obviously, Magnus Carlsen, I think he was on 99% chance to qualify, but he hasn't had as good of a tournament as he did in the Julius Baer Generation Cup a month ago. His performance rating in that tournament was close to 3,000, I think. What does it look like in this tournament?
So far this tournament, he's at 2766 performance, which almost any other player in the world could be very happy with, but it would be by far his worst tournament of the tour yet. He's been over 2,800 performance in every single tour event that he's played so far, but he's not there yet in this one.
And Magnus, he is up against Naroditsky and Giri today, so he could have a big influence on who goes through to the knockout.
Definitely.
Definitely. All right, Ty, thank you for joining us. We'll talk to you again after the first round.
See you then.
So now we know the projected preliminary results and the percentage chances. 70% for Anish Giri heading into the final day. And these are the games coming up in round 13. Erigaisi against Richard Rapport. Richard is one of those two players on 18 points. Vidit against Aditya Mittal. Vidit is fighting to qualify. Gukesh against Vincent Keymer. Keymer, who lost 5 games in a row and probably is out of contention to qualify. Harikrishna against Erik Hansen. Those two are out of contention. Abdusatorov starts off against the super entertaining Mamediarov. This should be a cool game. Grandelius against the tournament leader Duda. Daniel Naroditsky against Magnus Carlsen. And the game we will follow in the first round is David Anton against Anish Giri. There is a total of 3 rounds left in the preliminaries. Rounds 13, 14, and 15. And after round 14 today, as we always do, we'll do an Aimchess analysis, giving one of you at home the chance to get your online performance analyzed by Grandmaster David Howell. So send us your tweet using #ChessChamps and explain why you need David's expert help. Now, we didn't mention in the first round, it's Daniel Naroditsky against Magnus Carlsen. And let's take a look back to last season when these two met each other. A checkmate happened on the board.
But Magnus is frowning. Maybe he realizes it's actually checkmate in 3 with the variation I showed.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, Jovanka, you can bring your bishop to other squares, and it's game over, I think. But actually, if you bring your bishop back,
but
the king sidesteps.
the king goes to g7. No, I missed this.
And it says 100 on the bar.
Okay, it's on the board, David.
And Naroditsky, did you see that? He applauded.
That's a streamer.
That's a streamer. And he's also a streamer because he lets the checkmate happen on the board. No resignation. He shows the fans why the game ends, and that's checkmate.
We haven't seen many checkmates in the Champions Chess Tour. Remember this one? Once Magnus got checkmated by Dubov, I think.
Yeah.
We can probably count them on at least 2 hands.
Yeah, we've seen various checkmating attacks, especially by players like Mamediarov, but often the opponents, they've seen enough. They don't want to allow that final blow. But yeah, it's nice, I think, for all the fans, for us here in the studio as well, if the players played out right to the end.
Yeah, we've discussed chess rules, Lawrence. Should one rule be that you cannot resign from the game? You have to play it all the way to checkmate.
No, I definitely don't think we should change that rule. Otherwise, we'd be here until 1 o'clock in the morning most days. People should be allowed to resign. But, of course, we do endorse fighting spirit. So premature resignations, perhaps not. Especially if you're a younger player watching, don't resign too early until it's very, very clear that you're going to lose. Keep on going.
Yeah. All right, let's see if Magnus can checkmate Daniel Naroditsky again. This year, they are up against each other in the first round. Magnus playing from Sweden, been out skiing today, Magnus, and the Swedish woods, playing at 6 o'clock against Daniel Naroditsky, sitting in the US at 12 o'clock earlier in the day for him. We are going to follow the first game between Anish Giri in the Netherlands against David Anton, playing from Dubai. Here he is, David Anton. He knows he needs to win games today to qualify for the knockout stage. And what kind of a player, because we haven't followed too many of his games, what kind of a player is David Anton, Jovanka?
He's an aggressive player. He really likes to throw his pawns forwards, just attack. And, you know, look at them. There we see the stats, and we see advantage, capitalization. Well, he's good, 81%. Significantly higher than Anish Giri. And you can also see that he's very accurate as well, 88%. And, of course, Anish Giri matches him there with 92%. And endgame, very
strong.
good, 68%.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's an all-round player. We saw that yesterday in his game against Richard Rapport, where he managed to hold on to this very unpleasant endgame. He managed very easily, and we see Anish contorting himself.
Anish almost looking a little nervous. He knows he is that player in the crucial 8th place with the black pieces. In this one, if it is a draw, he will still have 3 points more than David Anton. If David Anton wins this game, they will be tied on the point. So what should be David Anton's strategy in this game, David?
It's almost a must-win situation for him. In David Anton's favour, if it is a draw, Anish still has to play Magnus Carlsen in the next round, so still some chances, but when you have white against your nearest rival, you have to win. I think if Anish holds this one, if he survives, he'll be a big favourite to get into those knockouts. So David Anton, it's good that his style as well is very combative, like Jovanka says. He's very uncompromising, and it's going to be hard for Anish to kind of just shut the gates and kind of knuckle down in a solid position. Okay, we start with a Reti opening, very flexible. David Anton plays everything, right, Lawrence? Every opening under the sun.
Oh, yes. David Anton, very versatile player. Doesn't feel uncomfortable in really any position, and today he's just playing a Colle. I mean, Bishop E2. I mean, this is
not the most aggressive start. I'm expecting there to be fireworks, and I really thought that David Anton would just go hard, and Anish, of course, playing the most principled line, in fact, developing the light squared bishop. Now, this is actually quite critical already for the white side, because unless David actually extracts something, he's going to be just level. I mean, he will have nothing from the opening.
I mean, it's basically a Queen's
Gambit decline reversed, isn't it? It's
reverse colours. It's as if David Anton, he was like, I prefer playing with the black pieces, so I'll play a black opening. And Anish, he's going to love this. So white does have the bishop pair. I guess that's the only real imbalance. The pawn structure is something we call the Carlsbad structure. There's a lot of material out there in books and video content about this pawn structure from the Queen's Gambit, usually. It can also arise from the Caro-Kann, Jovanka.
Yep.
And a few others. This position looks actually very similar to a Caro-Kann defence. But, yeah, it's going to take a slower turn now while both sides try to come up with plans. I've got to agree, I'm not a huge fan of this opening by David Anton, but it's a playable position. Still a lot of life left.
And it's the reason because it's not something you would play in a must-win situation.
Yeah, I'm not sure it suits his strengths. Anish has kind of got a solid foundation. Black's pawn structure is very harmonious. Black has a clear plan or two as well. Black can play on the queen side by pushing Black's A and B pawns later. That's something we call a minority attack. Actually, it's quite rare to push pawns on the side that you're weaker, where you have fewer pawns. But Anish can also push in the centre later. David Anton, he's got to play with pieces. He doesn't really want to push with pawns anytime soon. But, OK, the white pieces, they're coming out now. It takes a while to get them to their ideal squares. That's the issue for white.
I must say, I'm a big fan of the position for black.
Yeah.
Not for white. I mean, yeah, white has the bishop pair, but, I mean, if you take a look at the pawn structure, you can see it's relatively stable. No side is going to be advancing pawns, as David mentioned. And there's also no clear pawn breakthroughs. And I think this favours the knights. And there we see the light square bishop drop back, and it's probably going to manoeuvre itself again to a better diagonal.
Is this an optical illusion, though? because if we had this position with reverse colours, so if we had white's position but with black, where it would normally arise in the Queen's Gambit, we would be like, yeah, I'm fine out of the opening. I've survived. I've equalised. Maybe it's just I've got an extra tempo because we start with the white pieces. Yeah, it's kind of hard to explain, but for those out there, those viewers who do play the Queen's Gambit declined as black, this type of position that we now see for white, it must be very, very familiar. It's very strange to just kind of play a less ambitious opening, but with one extra tempo like this.
And it's not very his style, David Anton, is that what you said?
Not usually. Usually he's got some kind of tricky ideas up his sleeve in whatever he plays, or usually he likes to challenge the opponent quite early on, but he's taken a slower approach. And, OK, Giri, meanwhile, pausing. This is what we're used to seeing from the top players when they're about to come up with a middle game plan. We're done with the opening, both sides have castled, and it's just formulating a plan over the next 5-6 moves. That's why he stopped. He'll maybe think for another minute or two, Anish, then he'll play a few moves very, very quickly. But yeah, I mean, from the Caro-Kann, Jovanka, you have a lot of experience. Maybe if we jump in just to show where some of the pieces go, or some of the usual plans. OK, black's queen moving, very logical.
Why is that logical?
I guess you want to connect the rooks.
OK.
At the end of any opening, now the rooks are flexible. The queen's in the way previously, so this rook couldn't really step anywhere decent. It could step behind a pawn, but it's a bit blocked in there. So now the queen moves, and black can choose maybe to bring the rook to this square or maybe this square. Often, for example, if white moves his bishop, Jovanka, you mentioned that this is maybe a better square for the white bishop, staring down this side of the board. Maybe black can even consider at some point bringing his rook across and pushing these pawns. You have to time this correctly, but the idea would be, for example, if white does nothing, to launch that minority attack. So often 2 pawns, they bear down against 3 pawns, and the whole idea is no matter what happens now, whether white captures or whether white kind of leaves it, the trade of these pawns will leave white with an isolated pawn no matter what. So, OK, black's played the queen to a normal square. I'm expecting this move. What would happen next, for example, if black waits? How would we put up?
Well, I mean, knight f3 is kind of very standard here.
And there's one thing that black has to be careful with, because if you take a look at the pawns are pointing to the left, and you're like, hey, all the fun and games is going to happen on the left side. That is true, but you always have to take care of the king. And take a look at the black king. Doesn't have too many defenders around it. So as long as black is prepared to guard the king and just be aware that it could be in danger, then it should be fine. And he pushes a little pawn move over there, and that's primarily to say to the dark square bishop that white has, I mean, where are you going to go? What square are you going to develop to, my friend? Chess is like that. We're a bit mean at times, and it gives us certain satisfaction. But on the other hand, that pawn move also has its danger as well, because it's the pawn move, and the bishop could sacrifice itself at the right time and blast open the king.
Yeah. Later you need to prepare it, but OK, the pawn structure has actually changed, so Anish doesn't want to just sit patiently in this position. He blasts things open, and this looks exactly like a variation of the Caro-Kann now that I've had many times before myself. And after a trade of pawns, the white knight offers an exchange, and isolated queen's pawn, the IQP as we call it.
IQP,
yes.
Isolated Queen's Pawn.
Isolated queen's pawn. And it comes up from a bunch of openings, the Queen's Gambit, from the Caro-Kann, from French defense, from
Nimzo India.
Nimzo India, and I could go on and on.
There are lots.
There are lots. So these players, they'll be familiar with the ideas. Usually this pawn, it's nice to blockade it, especially with a knight in the centre, because that would be an outpost for the white knight. Also, you don't want to trade off too many pieces, because the more pieces that disappear, the weaker this pawn will become.
So is that now a super strong piece in our Anish's camp?
The pawn?
Yeah.
Yes, at the moment, at least. So it does control a lot of central squares, and black has great piece play. But yeah, again, you have to be careful. Certain endgames will be very bad for black because of its weakness. And OK, I was going to say there's a choice of which piece to take first. I often in these pawn structures actually take the knight, but he decides to take the bishop. And now, again, the question is, pieces are coming off the board. Is this a strength or weakness? White has a simple plan. You just park your bishop in the centre, maybe even on this square. You just centralise your rooks, and black has to kind of just sit and wait and hope. that the structure is not too deficient.
And it's on the board.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Okay, Anish really begging to exchange pieces. It's just interesting that Anish is willing to go into a slightly worse position, I think, just because he's confident in his defensive skills.
Yeah, I mean, the irony is, people watching this at home, if you've got a basic knowledge of the theory of isolated queen's pawn positions, it's that when you've got the isolated queen's pawn, you're supposed to keep pieces on the board, especially minor pieces, because you've got great piece play, so you want to use those pieces for an attack. But Anish is voluntarily exchanging his pieces, and theoretically, with every single exchange, his position should be slightly worse, because in the end, White is going to try and basically blockade, like David Anton is doing now, and win that d5 pawn. Note, Kaja, how the white pawn structure is very, very solid. 2 pawn islands, the pawns are connected, no real weaknesses, whereas black has got this glaring weakness now on d5. The good news for Anish is that it's well protected at the moment, and he can still, as for example the move rook e4, show great piece play. Nevertheless, White has got what we call a long-term static advantage, and static in the sense that the d5 pawn is static. It cannot be exchanged, it cannot be traded, so that's there for a long time.
So it's not a strength anymore.
Pros and cons, right?
Pros and cons, yes. It's probably more of a weakness than a strength, I would say. But I really like Anish's last move, for example, rook e4.
Yeah, it wouldn't be possible, this rook move, unless he had this central pawn supporting this square. Sorry, Jovanka.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, one of the things that you have to bear in mind when you do have a structural weakness like that weak pawn is that you should go about controlling open lines. And I like Anish's move as well. And now David Anton's move took me by surprise, because that's weakening the king a little bit. But it's asking the question to the rook, where are you going to go? Are you going to step back? Are you going to trade? Probably he has to take a step all the way back. Back again. Yeah. Dear, oh dear.
So he's lost 2 moves, Anish Giri, but he has provoked this slightly weakening move, as you say, Jovanka. The reason it's slightly weakening is actually that White's pushed this pawn as well, so there are holes kind of on the dark squares. And, I mean, if this pawn was back 1 square, I would say, OK, this is great for White. This pawn dominates the black knight, but, yeah, it's still very hard to come up with a productive plan.
Do you like the move g4 here? I mean, I'm serious. You put the king on g2, you control some squares.
You want to start attacking black?
No, I just want to find a safe haven for my king. It's out of the pin.
It's the type of move that David Anton might play, actually. I've seen him do similar things before.
Is it so ridiculous here? I'm not so sure.
Yeah, because black's knight is far away from taking advantage of these kind of weak squares that you've left behind.
It feels so loose. I mean, as someone who thrives on the counterattack, I'm like, come on, give me those squares.
Not yet. Maybe later, Lawrence.
Yeah, later. I mean, this move is quite nice by David Anton, you know, just securing those dark squares. And, well, it's an exciting day. And we love it when you at home also join in on the action. Share with us your selfies, your pictures, your thoughts. And you can do that by tweeting us using the hashtag #ChessChamps. And also you mentioned earlier on, Kaja, that, you know, we do have the chance for our expert, David, to analyse your games using Aimchess. And I do quite like Donkey Chess's tweet where he says, I need help because I keep making the same mistakes. Hashtag help me, David. I like the plea.
That's a good application.
Yes, it is. The queen retreats.
Yeah, the queen is actually eyeing up some of those squares. We mentioned that White has left behind, essentially, with those pawn pushes. Black's queen now on a really nice diagonal, could swoop in at some point. That's just kind of a, you know, an annoying move, I would say, just hinting that the queen will come in. Maybe it doesn't even want to, but David Anton now forever has to guard those dark squares around the white king. Still very, very tense, roughly level, but can David Anton create anything against black's isolated pawn? Maybe it's just going to be a long, long grind when all the rooks disappear, which they will most likely eventually.
Probably now, right? Takes rook e1 is just the absolutely standard continuation.
Yeah, and it will come down to an endgame of queen and knight against queen and knight. again, with better pawn structure for white, but minimal firepower left.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also white in the endgame will still have to look after the king now that the queens are on the board.
Yeah, I mean, David Anton, maybe the dream scenario would be getting the rooks off and the queens off.
Yeah.
If it's just queens and pawns, if the knights disappear, probably that's still a draw as well. But if you get the queens off and the rooks off, so it's just knights and pawns left, maybe then some chances, because white's knight will always be superior to the black, to its counterpart. But again, we're talking kind of long-term strategy and looking for tiny, tiny, small advantages. Anish says, yes, you can trade rooks, but on my terms.
Maybe it's now time for the white king to take a step forward.
Yeah, why not?
Oh my God, that would be such a gutsy move if it happened. I mean,
In the endgame, white's king can join the fun.
yeah, but still the queen and rook. I mean, it's something to be advised with caution, you know, take care, don't just march your king up the board, especially when there are rooks and queens on the board. Yeah.
Yeah, I would be terrified.
With good reason,
But that's
Kaja.
because I forget to look at where my king is.
I mean, if you do a quick one piece of advice that I got given when I was a kid, I used it quite extensively. It was like just before you make your move, you sit on your hands. I mean, it sounds so elementary, and you just do a quick board scan, and you just think about the move that you on the verge of playing, and you just go, does it drop? Does it fall off? Can my opponent do anything to win it? And if the answer is no, go ahead and play it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll see that move, Jovanka. If not now, then over the next 2 or 3 turns.
Yeah, well, and okay, the rook steps forward to
They're like,
Spurs.
let's take the rooks off, but none of them want to initiate it.
So they kind of
After
wanna-
you. They're both gentlemen. After you.
On my
Exactly.
terms.
No, you go first. No, you
But
go first.
it's actually with good reason, because basically neither side wants to concede the only open file on the board. So, for example, let's say black were to take here, David, to illustrate this point. If black takes here, queen takes, and white, now the queen has got all of that open space. So it's a bit of, as you guys were saying, no, you please first, sir. But white now has got an opportunity. Let's say black were to play a move like a6 here, which is also a very logical move, that white can now come behind the rook with the queen and effectively force the trade, because now there's no real way to keep the rook on there. There might be some funky way, but it looks a bit artificial. But yeah, and then white can claim a small victory here because he's got the open file. Is it enough? Well, it's very, very little.
But the end game is all about collecting those small little advantages.
Yeah.
I mean, you get your basket and you go better king, better queen, better pawns.
Open file.
Open line, yeah. I mean, this is everything. And slowly they build up to something quite unpleasant, and the psychological pressure as well. Let's not forget that.
And the bar is slowly going up for David Anton, now up to 0.5. I think that's the most it's been all game.
Yeah, it's unlikely we'll see the evaluation bar swing drastically in one side's favour, but it could be that kind of slow incremental gains, like you guys say. And I think you're right, Lawrence. We'll see most likely this queen move. Maybe you go back one of these 2 squares just to nudge the rook and say, OK, after you. And I mean, the other move we might see is this king move. We mentioned that it's a bit scary sometimes, but the white king is pretty safe. And we do indeed see your plan, Lawrence. The queen drops back and white occupies the open file. No entry points. This square's covered. This square's covered by the black knight. So you can't creep into the black position yet. But black now has to be a bit vigilant.
I think
The white king's coming next move.
Yeah, queen b6.
I was going to say, Lawrence, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, also, in a lot of these positions, white can put the knight in a more aggressive outpost. A knight on f5, Kaja. If
Will
you're
thrive.
A knight on f5 will yeah.
For example.
You've seen it before, yeah. Kasparov once said a knight on f5 was worth nearly a whole pawn.
Wow.
It's not quite in this position. When you've got a lot of other pieces on the board and you're attacking, that knight is just so brutal because it touches all of the sort of sensitive points around the black king. When it can't be kicked away, it's a very annoying piece. In this position, because there's such a reduction of material, there's only an additional queen, it's not such a big deal. But even a lonely little knight on f5 can sometimes cause you difficulties.
Another thing in the basket.
Yeah, and that's why in the game, Anish, he's played this queen move. First, he was attacking a pawn. This was dealt with by the pawn stepping forward, but he's trying to prevent that idea of Lawrence's, this knight move, because now he's staring down on the same diagonal as the white pieces. I mean, it could be a factor, for example, if, OK, let's say the black queen moves. It could be a factor that David Anton could still play this move, either now or on the next few turns, knight f5, and he's saying, OK, if you don't trade off the queens right now, then the white knight is going to be really scary. It's going to be really strong. And the queen exchange, we mentioned that this endgame, again, is not much, but it's slightly better for white because black's knight is always going to be tied down to this isolated pawn. So it's, again, tiny little things here. In the current position, David Anton has maybe a small threat of the white queen getting active. There is an entry square into the black camp, and I'm expecting Anish to deal with that.
And David Anton, he knows this is a game he most likely needs to win. So will we see him take some risks in this game?
At some point, a moment will most likely come where he'll have to do something, whether that's taking advantage of a mistake from Anish or whether it's kind of bluffing Anish or kind of creating a threat or two that might be hard to react to. But so far, David Anton, he's using a strategy that works quite a lot, actually. I'm mostly thinking of Kasparov against Karpov. I think it was in Seville. And Kasparov needed to win the final game to keep his title. If a draw, Karpov would have regained the World Championship title, and Kasparov just went really slowly about his business, and eventually Karpov cracked. Everyone thought he was just going to attack from the move one. It's Kasparov after all, but he just played on his opponent's nerves. And David Anton, he will have seen yesterday, Giri was a bit nervous, took a couple of quick draws, and David Anton will be like, OK, I'm going to have a slightly better position. You're going to be fighting for the draw. You're going to forget about any winning chances, and I'm going to slowly play on your nerves, play on your negativity. So interesting strategy.
Oh, that's interesting, yeah. When was that, the World Championship game you said? Seville?
1990, I think. I'm not the best chess historian out there, but it was, yeah, a long time ago.
So everyone was shocked when Kasparov didn't play to his normal style?
Yeah, exactly. He adapted things just because he knew that his opponent would be a bit nervous. And he was very patient, and that's rare in a must-win situation. Wow. That's what David Anton is showing now, very much patience. And, OK, the queen does choose an active square. Just keeping an eye on some of the white pawns, but also controlling e7. The white queen wanted to go there, remember? And now, surely, the white king joins in.
Well, I like this move, because let's say you do play king f2. Is his idea to play queen a3 and just bother these pawns? But, of course, you can defend them easily with queen e2 or queen d2. But maybe he's going to just poke around there.
So maybe you think poke around this side of the board?
Yeah, for example, queen e2 might actually be a mistake, because queen c1 there might be a bit...
So you want black to start sneaking in from behind and start attacking some pawns.
Exactly.
I guess that's why David Anton decided in the current position, this is actually quite a clever move. This is the only undefended point in the whole white camp, the only undefended pawn, so he pushed it forward. So now if the black queen comes in, it's not actually attacking anything. Very clever, actually. It comes in anyway. The knight does defend this pawn, however. And Anish, he's just saying the white queen can't come in, it can't use this square because black's queen covers that square. And again, it can't kind of even sneak in this way because of some nasty checks. And this pawn would suddenly drop.
Yeah, and because of those checks, I think it's high time for the white king to hide itself away, and that's the square I was thinking of. You know, use its pawns as a shield. And then, you know, there's still the idea of the white queen, you know, jumping forward to the 5th row or to the 7th row or to even the knight coming at the right time. Oh, we have a check. Yep. It's very exciting when we get checks. Yeah. It's like, what's going to happen? Is the king going to run away? Is a pawn going to step forward?
First check of the game, I think. It's been a while. And, OK, this check. If the king goes back, then at the very least, black could go back and repeat the position. Or maybe he could even jump in this way towards the white king. I'm expecting a pawn block. But again, every pawn push you make, you can't go backwards with pawns. Suddenly the black queen could come back, and suddenly the second rank is undefended. It's open. Yeah, it's not ideal, actually.
And the white king is not going to find a good safety point. I mean, even if you were to kind of try to hide on a different row, like the 3rd row, I mean, it's still not going to be very easy because the queen kind of find ways to sneak behind, give checks.
Suddenly this king, it's not ideally placed. But how else to block this check? If you push this pawn forward, you give a key square in the centre of the board to the black knight. And now we see that black's isolated pawn is really strong, anchoring this outpost.
Oh, no.
OK, we've seen this position happen for a second time. David Anton definitely won't go for the draw, though. He won't repeat the position for a third time. He'll try something different. I've never really played anyone in the world as ambitious and as draw-averse as David Anton.
Oh.
Every game I play him, he tries to fight for the win. And Lawrence's move on the board.
With the accent. No, you have to do it with the accent, David.
G4. G4. Makes a lot of sense. You give your king a bit more breathing room, and sometimes the king can just sit on G2, or sometimes even G3, as David is showing. It restricts the knight a bit more on F6. I would have preferred it a few moves ago because I am a little loose around the back, but yeah, I mean, as the bar is showing, it says 0-0-0. I do believe the position is probably equal, but I think it's probably a little bit more tricky for black to play, but queen b2 is a very logical move.
Yeah, cutting the king off so the king can't advance, and also tying down the white knight to this pawn. The white knight has to stay defending, the white queen has to stay defending here. But I was going to say, there's nothing else to do. Those pieces are tied down. Push Harry to the h-pawn. That's the modern trend. And there is a specific idea here. White wants to push the g-pawn forward now that it's supported by its buddy, and the black knight will be kicked away. Suddenly, black's king will feel a bit loose if this defender, its guardian, the knight, is removed. So, okay, slowly heating up despite what the evaluation bar says. Both players have been playing quite quickly, but it's Anish now dealing with a threat against his knight.
Why didn't he push Harry 2 squares?
It was already on h3.
Already on h3, so...
That's why.
Yeah. If it had been on h2, he would have played the same move, pushed it 2 squares. So you're right, Kaja. It's more important to just support the pawn next to it.
And if he pushes this pawn, could he just take it with the h-pawn?
That's right.
Yeah, that will happen. And this is why we needed Harry to support, because Harry will recapture and the status quo continues, where essentially you need a pawn to kick away the black knight. If, in this position, white had been too hasty, not pushed Harry, if he'd pushed Gary first, then after a capture, white can only take with a queen, but that wouldn't do anything, it wouldn't threaten anything, and actually white's queen would be losing defense of some other pawns. And Anish, wow, interesting move. In the game situation, kind of met with the threat of pushing this pawn forward. He's just saying, yeah, you do it, you go ahead. He's blocking things up, so now this has got to be critical, right?
It has to be critical. I mean, I guess Anish's idea is basically the knight will retreat to any square, and then it's going to park itself on the f8 square and, you know, go knight on f8, you don't get a mate. And then everything is going to hinge on white's king. Does it have an escape route where it can hide to a safe spot, or is it just going to be vulnerable to the black queen checking him forever and ever?
Yeah, it's maybe the knight goes the other way, but anyway, a check would always be met by a block, and we do say a knight is a king's best friend. As Jovanka mentioned, no checkmate, and unfortunately, black has counter threats against the white king. It's hard to see any progress here. What would you guys do in the current position? I think I would push and then start to think.
Yeah.
Maybe the knight can go this way as well. Just maybe this is the safer one. It's a protected square. It'll go back.
And then here I was thinking, you know, I think white probably has to establish a pawn chain first on the left side.
It's hard to achieve, though.
Oh, yeah.
If you push this pawn forward, you want to...
gobbled, right?
You want to establish this, right, so they all defend each other, so you can forget. You kind of free up your knight from the defence. But, yeah, unfortunately, any pawn pushes will always be met by a check, and the pawn would drop. Yeah, Anish... It's quite ugly what he's doing. He's just playing with his queen alone. This does not, I mean, at least for me as well, it's not instinctive. Playing with the queen, kind of letting the black king and knight defend for themselves. But he's just trying to annoy David Anton, essentially. Trying to frustrate him. Interesting position. Can white make progress? That's the question.
And David Anton kind of needs to get his king into the action.
Yes.
So does he need Anish to check him with the queen so he can move 1 square forwards?
Yeah, so any black checks would actually help the white king go where it wants to go. So ideally, white's king wants to step forward to the 2nd rank, maybe even the 3rd rank, maybe even the 4th rank, and keep dancing forward. Because the king won't really get checkmated if you're careful, but at the moment it's just a target if it's abandoned by white's queen and knight.
What do you think right now? What will be the result in this game?
I'm going to say it's going to be a draw.
Okay.
I think black's queen is it's just too good.
Yeah.
I mean, what Anish is doing, I think it's ugly, but as satisfactory. And that is why David Anton has captured the pawn.
Wow.
Wow.
Instead of pushing it forward.
Yeah, that wasn't even on my radar because he's voluntarily taking a wrecking ball to his pawns over there on the right. I mean, look at them. They're so ugly. They're all disconnected. We don't like that here in the studio, do we? We like pretty pawns.
But now, I mean, 2 Harrys are better than 1. White has
that's
2
true.
H-pawns. And there's a concrete idea, right, Jovanka?
It certainly does.
So now we were expecting the pawn to push forward. This is what we call a harmonious pawn chain, 1 pawn island, to use Lawrence's terminology. But now this is not 1 pawn island. These don't defend each other. But the whole idea is that white's a pawn up temporarily, and if black goes to recapture the pawn, white can give a check. Hitting the black king, the king has to move, and now this pawn is loose. So you couldn't actually give this check while the knight previously sat defending the square, but now it's possible, and you gobble up a pawn, you hit the black knight, you hit this guy as well, you hit this pawn, and it looks a bit scary for black.
Okay, that looks kind of good.
Yeah, it looks good. You also have to be careful of the white king. The white king is out in the open, but I think David Anton has spent his time. He spent 2 minutes on this move. It was calculating that white's king was safe, and this is why we say a knight is a king's best friend. The king is all alone here. It looks like it's about to get checkmated, if anything, but the white knight can just sit back and block. And knights are actually so good at stopping the opponent's queen from checking the white king. Just the perfect bodyguard, this white knight, and white has won a pawn. So interesting for Anish Giri in the current position. He wants to win a pawn back, of course, but can he do that right now? If the answer is no, then actually this pawn is going to push forward, and it's going to be like a battering ram, just going to open up the black king even further.
I think he has to take that pawn, to be honest with you. And he has to gamble on perhaps the queen and knight coordinating together, and otherwise, like David highlights, that pawn is going to step forward, and it's going to be a wrecking ball to black's position.
I'm going to say David Anton's going to win this. I think he's just playing really well. Black should still have enough drawing chances or drawing resources, but Anish is the one under pressure, and his whole mentality the whole game has been to try to draw. And we've seen that on the tour backfire so many times on any player if they're just playing with one result in mind, playing a bit negative.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, a long way to go, but heating up.
So, Kaja, I have to ask you a question. What do you think of Anish's thinking pose? Like, because this is such a common chess player's pose, you know, we sit there with our head in the hands. Do you think that makes us look super smart, super focused, or does it just look a bit strange?
I don't know. It looks sensible. Yeah.
It's practical. He's holding up the heaviest part of his body, his big brain.
Yeah.
But I was just wondering, well, why do we do this?
Yeah. I mean, when I do it, it's either because I'm trying to block out the distraction, just block out all the light or the audience or anything, or it's because I know my position's bad and I'm trying to pretend that nobody else can see, nobody else can look into my eyes. And
What's your thinking pose then, Lawrence?
Oof. Well, I tend not to think. That's
It's a bad idea in chess.
Let me think. That's one, or...
Oh, I've seen you do that so many times with the hand.
Yeah, I've got the resting hand, I've got that one. I'm not really an arm-crossed guy, occasionally.
I've seen you do that, David.
Yeah, I try to do that if I'm acting confident or if I'm genuinely confident.
No, that's definitely one of your poses.
It's hard because it's instinctive, right? You don't even think about it.
Yes, you don't even think about it. Ivanchuk, who played, didn't he? He's got a famous pose. He twirls his eyebrow.
Yeah, we've seen that.
We saw that.
That's...
Magnus is often back in his chair, like, whoa, he fell off the stage.
Be careful.
He's just got his leg up.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Completely relaxed, you know? We're all trembling and he's just leg up, no problem. Yeah, I love this move. I mean, just returning to this game, Anish has spent 4.5 minutes here. That is a long time. And fair play to David Anton for finding this move, because G5 is the automatic move, and you're probably right, the knight reroutes, and it's not easy. And now Anish feeling a little bit of the pressure, actually.
He wouldn't have expected this one either, Anish, right?
Thinking for 5 minutes now, Anish.
And I was going to say earlier, Black's one saving grace was his clock advantage, Anish Giri, but now he's lower on time.
Yeah.
He's the one defending, remember, Black. He's long-term, statically, he's worse. Dynamically right now, Black has some problems as well. And yeah, I mean, credit to David Anton, this last move, I think that's the toughest thing in chess, is breaking down your own kind of stereotypes, your dogmatic thinking. So we would think, okay, keep the pawn structure, advance forward, nice and intact, control. But he's just saying, no, I'm willing to lose control. I'm willing to worsen my own pawn structure because it works in this one specific moment. And okay, that's a check, forcing the white king forward.
Yeah, and the king has moved on to a row it wants to be.
Well, it will do in a minute. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which square? There's 3 safe squares for the white king.
I was going to suggest this square.
Yeah.
Just so that the queen was not able to check the king along the G line. And this is nice.
Yeah, this must be good news for David Anton.
So the king, I mean, this is the critical moment. The king has to decide. It would normally want to step forward if we'd seen the pawn structure block up earlier, but it can't really step forward now. Again, there's a specific reason. The white king, it would love to kind of step forward and maybe kind of head into the black camp on a good day. But now if it steps forward, the problem is the knight takes the pawn with check. So this is the difference. It comes with tempo. White's king now is too far out in the open. For example, you don't want to step forward anymore because the black queen swoops behind and this would end in checkmate. So we still have to be careful despite the fact it's an endgame with our king. We can't allow this to happen with check. The problem is here, black wants to take this pawn. If we get time now for white to come and check, then white would be doing well, maybe even winning, but it comes with time. So David Anton, in the current position, if he can't step forward, what does he do? Does he go back? Does he block with the white knight? If you block with the white knight, you lose this pawn. If you block with the white queen, you lose this pawn. So there's downsides to every move right now.
But you can play, for example, king f1 here, David, and...
Okay. If I keep checking you?
Now you check, and now I can try queen e1. I can try it.
Yeah, you can block, and I guess the question is what would happen, for example, in an endgame if the queens disappear, and now black can win his pawn back.
Yeah, and this is the endgame you have to... It feels like...
Wait 1 second.
Go on.
Because we were thinking about the king retreating, but we were not expecting the knight to take a step backwards.
He's just abandoned his queen side. So David Anton, he's going all in.
Yeah.
If this was poker, he's just pushed all his chips to the centre. He's saying, OK, have all my pawns, I don't even care. I'm going to go for your king. And he's pushed this guy forward. He's trying to ask Anish direct questions. So this is where you mentioned Kaja earlier. David Anton, is he going to kind of gamble at some point? Is he going to take risks? And this is the moment. Now Anish has to decide what to do with his king. He willingly captures the pawn. It was too strong. But now the black king is a bit open. White can even take this pawn, for example. I guess Anish's idea, if he takes this pawn attacking the knight, is the black queen can come back and defend. This would be a check and some nasty threats. If white's not careful here, if white blocks, for example, with the knight, you always have to look out for tactics. White's queen is undefended, and a knight check would hit the king, hit the queen, and when the knight disappears, suddenly we realise discovered attack, and the white queen would drop. And we might see this variation on the board. Maybe David Anton won't fall into that tactic, but maybe we'll see Anish Giri bring his queen back to the defence.
This is sharpening up really nicely, you know, because Black's king could potentially be under fire within the next few moves, and there's still a lot of pitfalls to navigate. Wow.
You need to somehow teleport the white knight to f5. Again, the dream square, and then the black king is doomed.
Yeah.
But it takes a while.
Yeah, kind of like the mission is get that knight to the f5 square without allowing black a perpetual check. If you can do that, you're going to win.
Yeah, and 4 minutes against 2 minutes, Anish Giri now. It's harder to defend than attack, that's the cliche.
Here's a big moment, David.
Yeah, he's got to move his king.
He's got to move the king. Don't pick up the knight.
He could block with the white queen. That would be an interesting question, offering a queen trade if the white queen jumps back. But in a must-win situation, I'm not sure you want to calculate a knight endgame. White's pawns are all shattered now. It's white with 4 isolated pawns. So it's unclear if an endgame would suit white.
And we do have one big result. Vidit, who started out the day with 14 points, 1 point less than David Anton, has just won his game against Aditya Mittal, 3 points. So that means Vidit is now on 17 points, 1 point behind Anish Giri before this game.
Yeah, so he's also going to be hoping, Vidit, that David Anton can take some points off Giri.
Yeah. Unfortunately for Vidit, he actually lost in his game to Anish.
Head-to-head.
So in their head-to-head, he has the inferior tiebreak. So he'll be hoping to grab the points from Rapport.
Yeah.
I mean, no everyone is safe. Well, those two aren't safe anyway.
Nope, definitely not.
Okay, David Anton, he does decide to bring his queen back.
I think this is a good decision because Anish is the one who has to calculate furiously whether this endgame is survivable.
Yeah, the thing is, if black takes the white queen now, then white's king will recapture it, and white's king is perfectly placed in the centre. So it's a bit like earlier, Lawrence, where that trade of rooks, it's like, yes, you can exchange, but on my terms. What do we think? David Anton, he can avoid the queen trade again now, though. He can block this tension between the queens with the white knight.
Yeah, he can do that. He can even... I've got it's a bit strange. The move queen d4. Okay. What if I centralise the queen? And the idea is that after queen takes d4, I actually want to play the completely counterintuitive move c takes d4. The idea being that if the knight now goes to b6, you now play knight c3, and a5 is a threat in some variations. And the knight looks poor, and the king can come round via g3, f4, and the h-pawn will happily distract the black king, so the black king can't get too centralised. And, yeah, and if you don't play knight to b6, I'm going to go knight to c3 anyway on the next move, and if you put the knight on f6, I have a similar plan of walking in the king on the dark squares. It's a very unconventional idea, but it...
Yeah, makes some sense.
It's probably not good enough, but... It's a sort of move that can be annoying.
Yeah.
What do you think, David?
I like that one too. I mean, the first move that I'm attracted to, just because black's king is very open, is to keeping the queens on the board, so blocking the queen exchange. White's knight is perfect in the centre, and there are ideas now of coming with a check, for example, or coming to the top of the board with a check. At least if I needed to win this game, I would probably try and do this first. But like you say, Lawrence, David Anton, we saw his Aimchess stats earlier. Very good in the endgame. He could maybe say, yes, queen trade, but on my terms. Very interesting move. So, OK, he spent a long time there, and he does allow the queen exchange. He goes after this pawn instead. So now the big question is maybe that variation you showed. If the queens disappear, black can now go for this white pawn. I don't like this at all. The queens have disappeared. Anish is going to go for this pawn, and you can't keep it alive. If you step it forward, then black comes in with a check, and the next move picks up this pawn. Things are starting to disappear. Surely this helps Anish.
It should do, but after king d4, knight takes a4, knight takes d5, is it so easy to play for black?
Not easy, but there's only 3 pawns left.
But my king is very close to just walking in and Pac-Manning. Yeah.
Yeah, possibly. It feels like there shouldn't be enough left, and we actually...
Feels like that, yeah.
Yeah, we're heading in this direction. This is the current position. And, yeah, it's rook's pawns. Knights are notoriously bad at stopping these corner pawns, H-pawns and A-pawns, because they can only stop them from one side of the board. So black's king is actually going to go and deal with one. And Anish is going to hope that his knight can deal with this white pawn. It's a race. Who is going to be quicker gobbling up pawns with their king? And, okay, David Anton just happily pushes forward. I just think he's coming, and what do you do against that?
You're going to have to put the knight into a defensive square if you want to guard against the black king.
Stop my king advancing.
Yeah, but then again, you know, you're just going backwards. You're not coming forwards.
And
I
black can
agree
also
with
just
you.
kind of put a knight on his square.
Not enough pawns to cause any serious trouble to Anish.
Yeah, Anish doing a good job of defending this one. It feels to me like David Anton could have kept the queens on, maybe should have kept the queens on the board earlier. But this is the current position. Big threat, Anish Giri, to come and win white's isolated H-pawn.
All right.
The clock is ticking down. Did you see that? It's coming out to 1 minute.
1 minute left. These are the current standings. A bunch of games have finished. Anish Giri and Richard Rapport both still on 18 points, but beat it. He is now on 17 after winning his game. David Anton on 15. If he wins this game, will be on 18, same as Anish and Richard. If it is a draw, he will be on 16 points. Arjun Erigaisi is still playing his game. Gukesh, he has lost his game. He is stuck on 21. A win for Vincent Keymer.
breaking a terrible downtrend, by the way. He lost 5 in a row.
Incredible.
So it was an important bounce back game. Oh, of course, he's out of the running, but still for his confidence.
He's not yet, Lawrence.
Oh, actually, he might not
he
be.
He had 0.3% chance.
Yeah. Right, so if he wins 2 more games, 21 points could be enough.
He needs all the results to go his way.
Yeah, and the tie breaks as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big ask.
Yeah, there was a tournament that you and I commentated on last year, Jovanka, in the Challengers Tour, where before the final day, I think it was Gukesh.
Yeah, it was.
He had 0.3% chance of winning the tournament, but he won his games on the last day and he won
Incredible.
it. So
It's possible, yeah.
nothing. Never say never in chess.
Yeah. And for Vincent Keymer then, well, he will hope for draws mostly, and here we do have a draw.
Yeah, it looks like David Anton with that last move just offered a draw, simply running out of pawns. Black's king would take a pawn, White's knight would take a pawn, and everything would just disappear.
All right, that was not what David Anton with the white pieces was hoping for. You can see it on his face. Not super happy about that. He will now be on 16 points with 2 rounds left to play in the preliminaries. This is Grandelius. He is out of the tournament against the tournament leader, Jan-Krzysztof Duda. But is Duda losing here on the first round?
Yes, he's still got a couple of tricks up his sleeve. Black's pawn is very, very strong on A2. It's blockaded right now, but if the black knight can come and give a check to the white king, we would see a turnaround. We have seen Nils kind of slip up a few times when low on the clock, but a quick count shows white to pawn up, and also rook and bishop usually work better than rook and knight.
Yeah, but it's so important to control the movement of that knight, because that knight, if it manages to give the white king a check, it's going to be game over. So this is why the bishop retreated, so the knight cannot jump to the c5 square. But Duda's tricky customer, he's determined to get a knight going somewhere.
Yeah, at some point I'd be curious to see Duda's Aimchess stats, because I've seen so many losing positions that he's turned around. Resourcefulness, he's probably just very high. He's one of the top guys out there. But he is shaking his head, Duda. He knows he's objectively losing this position. White's bishop can go and grab another pawn.
I like just, yeah, exactly. I just like pushing here, g5.
Yeah. Push those F and G pawns, that's where white is strongest.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but Nils, knowing him as well, he'll be slightly unhappy with his performance in this tournament, and he might be getting slightly nervous. Okay, stepping forward.
Didn't expect this one, actually.
He has stopped the black knight jumping in, but black's rook has got active now, attacking the white bishop. You could still make an argument for attacking the black knight. You can use the white bishop and go and grab a pawn, potentially. You've got to be a bit careful. And here we do see the Aimchess stats. And, OK, a surprise for me. It's only 32% that Duda turns around those losing positions. Nils turning them around 30%. But it's advantage capitalization that's more important here for the Swedish player. He does win 85% of games when he has a, I think, +2 advantage or more.
Wow.
So he should be winning this one, Nils, and he's doing a good job so far.
Yeah.
Attacking the black rook.
But let's not forget the clock situation. 25 seconds for Nils Grandelius.
Yeah.
Oh, not that much time.
He just needs to get rid of that black A2 pawn. If he can get rid of it, all the risk is gone. So black's rook, I'm expecting, is going to run away from the attack, just on the A file somewhere. It's just going to retreat.
20 seconds left for Duda to save the game.
He's shaking his head, Duda.
Yeah.
He's got to move his rook. But where do you move it to? OK, 1 square back. I think your move now, Lawrence. Attack that black knight with a pawn.
Yeah, or you could play bishop b2. Also looks logical, just improving. But yeah, g5 looks terminal.
Can't let that black knight in. Black's knight wants to end up on either the b3 square or the c2 square with a check.
What a weird move
king.
that is.
Oof. This does give me flashbacks of the game that Nils lost. Who was it against? Where he had a rook on this square, and he was against a knight. He blundered into a knight fork. He lost his rook in 1 move. And, OK, the bar's still on white's side, but you've got to be really careful now. Black has massive threats with his knight if he can get a check. So forcing the black king back first.
Look at that.
He's feeling nervous, Nils.
Why didn't...
But he can capture a pawn, right? He can go rook takes pawn. And, OK, no, it's a check.
Nils is making a meal of this, actually.
Yeah, only white's pawns are dropping.
Yeah, knight c5 is a cute move.
Wow, OK, and massive winning threat on the board for Duda if he can give a check, if he can jump to b3 and check that white king. The blockade for black's pawn would be gone. That would make a new queen.
He saved it, right? You have to give up a piece. And now he's just going to play knight check the king, and then rook takes rook.
Yeah, black's going to give a check, surely. And your move, Jovanka, the rooks disappear, and white's bishop falls.
With check.
OK, he doesn't take the rook, he takes the knight. This is very clever. And now material count, it's bishop and 2 pawns for a rook, so it's actually equal material after all of that. But white's advantage disappeared. Suddenly white has to be a bit careful he doesn't lose. Black has an e-pawn, past e-pawn. Interesting here from Duda, forcing the pawns onto dark squares, attacking them from behind. If they're on dark squares, they can be blockaded by the black king. And OK, the evaluation bar is just having a field day here. Just left, right, left, right. White is winning again. It's completely unclear why. OK, the pawns march forward.
I think he had to go c5 there.
He had to do a breakthrough, right?
See it, Lawrence, yeah. So white should have pushed on the other side of the board while black wasn't ready. He's getting ready to do it again, though. White must still be the favourite with so many pawns.
Right.
There are many one-move situations here right now. What a tough game to play.
Yeah, and this is what Duda's kind of biggest strength is. He's so good at manipulating these situations with material imbalances, but he is up against it still.
And huge developments in the other game that is still being played here in round 13. Richard Rapport, remember, in 7th place before the round with the 18 points, same score as Anish Giri. It looks like he's now winning this first round today against Arjun Erigaisi, and if he takes 3 points, that's going to be very good news for Richard Rapport. It's going to be bad news for players like Anish Giri.
Yeah, and you know, we said yesterday, let's see if that early draw against Naroditsky shapes his tournament.
Yeah.
Because it tends to happen, Kaja. I mean, honestly, in
Chess god.
The chess gods, they're not happy when you draw quickly and you've got a better position.
He also played a very quick draw against Richard Rapport yesterday.
Yeah.
In like 10, 20 moves.
Yeah, you don't want to upset Kaisa. She gets very upset if you don't try and nurture something from a slightly better position.
Meanwhile, look at the bar, guys. Plus 8 for white.
Yeah.
White's pawns, he's actually sacrificed 1 nils. He's distracting the black king now. And how does he push his other pawns, the F and G pawns?
You can just take. Yeah, this is good.
You can just march your king over, right?
Yeah. Bring that king towards your pawns. Yeah, it looks like black's king just too far away from the action. And black's pawn is irrelevant. It will be controlled by white's bishop.
Exactly. You can give up your bishop, right, for that pawn.
Doesn't
look winning. Matter. Yeah, totally winning for Niels. This is like for me, this is like a very real game. You know, there's ups and downs, mistakes are made, but eventually one side is triumphant, and they can see Duda. He's shaking his head. He's not happy. He knows that it's all over.
Yeah, they do say that pawns on the 6th rank, white has 1 of them now, white's about to get a 2nd one, they beat a rook, even without your bishop, even without your king. So as long as Niels can push his G-pawn forward 1 square without losing his other pawn, it's winning. 2 pawns will beat a rook. So just bring the white king over.
Yeah, king d6 is just mandatory, easy move to find.
Move the king to the right, king d6, king d5, one of them.
Yeah, as long as you're shouldering away the black king. Yeah. Shouldering is a football term, isn't it?
It's probably in many sports. Shouldering, you just block off the opponent with your shoulder, put your body in between them and yourself and the ball, and that's what Niels is doing. The white king is going to go in the way of the black king. Block it off. He
looks ready to resign, Jan-Krzysztof Duda.
He's treating us to a range of emotions. He's very similar to Magnus in that respect. And there he captures a pawn. And now the pawns come marching.
Yeah, but I'm slightly surprised at what Niels is doing. He could have gone even closer to his pawns. The black pawn was actually irrelevant. Still must be winning. But
very importantly, actually, the bishop on c1 is controlling the e3 square. For example, there are some checks from behind that black would like to do and pester that white king, but there are actually no checks here, which is really relevant.
And now it's super important to push the right pawn, because if you push the G pawn, then you allow the black king to step forward, and this is why Niels uses his king. And here comes The Black King trying to defend, but checked away.
Yeah, it's checked away. Next, white will push the f-pawn, and it will make a new queen.
It says 100. It's a loss for tournament leader Jan-Krzysztof Duda here in the first round today. He is definitely going through to the knockout stage, though. Nils Grandelius getting a nice win. This game is still going on. Arjun Erigaisi inside top 8. So is Richard Rapport, but he is just about inside with 18 points. And the bar has been going up and down. Now it's closer to 0. What do you think, David?
Yeah, it really reminds me of a game yesterday that we saw, that really long battle between David Anton and Richard Rapport, where it ended up with rook and bishop versus rook. That was eventually a draw. It could go that way again. Black is a 1 pawn up, but it's opposite colour bishops. White's bishop is doing a good job of stopping that dangerous f-pawn. And there we go, the bar switches.
That seems to happen a lot here.
Yeah, switches again. That's because simply the computer in certain positions, maybe not now, but it sees a win for black, but it might require 5 or 6 moves of calculation, and that's so hard with 10 seconds, 20 seconds on the clock. And I did look over earlier, Rapport did miss a win, but it wasn't obvious. And Erigaisi, he's trying to make things difficult. Both the white rook and bishop are defending against the advance of that black pawn. Still a lot of work to be done to win this game.
All games in round 14 will start at the same time, 10 minutes after the final game in this round. That is, this game finishes. So 10 minutes after this game, all games in round 14 will start.
Yeah, it's also relevant that black's a-pawn, that black pawn on a6, it looks like it's not doing anything, but if the rooks ever disappear, it does promote on a dark square, which is the opposite colour to black's bishop. So actually black can never, ever exchange rooks, because even if white loses his pawn, loses his bishop, it will be a draw. Black's a-pawn is not enough on its own to win the game. So that's a really relevant factor. If the position was shifted and that pawn promoted on the same colour as black's bishop, then it would be a pretty simple win. So small details there.
Yeah, I'm a bit puzzled by Richard's attempts. You know, he's just shuffling his king. I thought that maybe he would try to move the king towards the left side of the board and try and checkmate the white king. But okay.
He's actually running out of time, so I've taken a look. The last pawn push was on move 50. So we've actually played 26 moves without any progress being made. But wow, maybe some progress has been made now. This is a pin.
Ooh, this is a big moment, actually.
Why did Erigaisi put his bishop on the same file, on the same rank, sorry, as the white rook? Suddenly...
It's just over, no?
It's
King
over.
d7 is just unstoppable.
Suddenly white's bishop is just doomed. You can never, ever move the bishop and trade off rooks because black's pawn will push. The black f-pawn will make a new queen. Just as I was saying, he's running out of time to win this one, Rapport. He's tricked Erigaisi.
Wow.
Erigaisi actually tricked himself in a way. Maybe trying to be a bit too clever.
Yeah,
His bishop was already on a perfect square. Why move it?
you can see Erigaisi, the frustration on his face. He just gave a big sigh. He knows it's wrong. So he gives a check. King steps forward, maintains contact with the white rook. And it's so close.
White's bishop, it could have moved, but it would have been attacked again. And, OK, now there must be several ways to win this. I mean, you can just leave the white rook and bishop as they are. They're not going anywhere.
No.
And the black king's coming now to support its pawn. Yeah, I mean, this was hard to defend, we've got to say. Erigaisi, he was already up against it when we joined, but now it's quite straightforward. Rapport's very good when it comes to technical positions as well. White is basically paralysed. He can barely move.
Down to 20 seconds again, Erigaisi. On 21 points. It's looking good for him to qualify, but he's not 100%. This is not going to be a good loss for him.
Yeah, and look at Rapport. That is really sadistic, just stopping the white king from move. Well, OK, it's only got one square now. The white bishop can't move, the white rook can't move.
No, he's going to go for checkmate.
He's coming in.
Yeah, and I guess the plan would be just to walk the king
Rook
all the
b3
way.
is nice.
Now there must
Rook c3?
be a discovered check.
Yes.
That's it.
Checkmate next move. Once the white king goes into the corner, Rapport takes the win.
It's over. Wow, 3 important points for Richard Rapport to taking to the same score as Arjun Erigaisi, both now on 21 points. That is bad news for a player like Anish Giri. All right, well, David, we came in very late. And it looked like maybe Arjun was saving it, but what happened?
Yeah, the final mistake, it was just walking into a pin. It was a self-pin. Erigaisi put his bishop on a bad square, and as we saw in the game later, that was the fatal mistake. Here, actually, he's got his bishop on a perfect square, guarding the black pawn. He's got his rook on the perfect square, also guarding the black pawn's advance. If, for example, he'd just waited with the bishop anywhere on this diagonal, or if he just moves his king, he should still be able to draw this with best play. But Erigaisi, trying to be a bit too clever, brought his bishop to the top of the board. Yes, he's lining up a check with the white rook, but as we saw, Rapport found the winning idea. He simply dropped his rook back, and even in the endgame, pins are so effective. This pins the white bishop to the white rook. You can never move the bishop, because after a trade of rooks, the pawn promotes, and that was his downfall. We saw, after a check, the rook had to go back, and here Rapport could do anything he wanted, because the bishop and rook are completely stuck. And he went on to deliver checkmate in the final position. This is a check, hitting the white king, the king's dropping back, the king trapped. Nice win in the end by Rapport.
Minutes, round 14 will start. Anish Giri is in trouble. He is currently in 8th place and only 2 points down to Vidit and 3 points down to David Anton. And guess who Anish Giri faces? It's Magnus Carlsen. It's going to be a very tough game for Anish to fight for qualification for the knockout stage. Still, 2 rounds of chess to be played in the preliminaries, round 14 and round 15. And after round 14, we are giving you guys a chance to get your online performance analyzed by our very own Grandmaster David Howell. So remember to share your username on either chess.com, LeadChess, or chess24 using the hashtag ChessChamps on Twitter, and explain also why you need David's expert help for that analysis. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we get back, we're going to build up to the action in round 14.
Seriously? Checkmate. Aimchess is an intelligent system that analyzes your game, prevents mistakes, and develops recommendations for improving your skill. Phew.
Air quality isn't the first thing that comes to mind when you think about chess and esports, but it affects our focus, decision-making, health, sleep, and more. What's in the air you breathe? Find out with Air Things.
When I saw her for the first time, it was love at first sight. I love how rich and complex she is, how sharp and principled her first steps, how graceful her movement. Paris is the city of love. I've come to find my love for the French defense.
Only 2 rounds left to be played in the preliminaries before 8 players have to leave us and 8 players go through to the knockout stage. Let's take a look at the results from round 13. Bunch of games ending up with winners. Rapport, 3 points against Erigaisi. Vidit, 3 very important points against Mittal. Vincent, Keymer, slight chances to qualify after beating Gukesh. Harikrishna win against Eric Hansen. Abdusatorov beating Mamedyarov, and Grandelius beating the tournament leader Duda. Magnus Carlsen played a draw in the first game, and these are the standings. Still Duda on top of the table, but let's look around the crucial 8th place. So we now have 3 players on 21 points. Gukesh, Erigaisi and Rapport. Anish Giri in 8th place with 19 points. That's only 2 points more than Vidit in 9th and 3 points more than David Anton in 10th place. So we're joined again by Ty, our stats genius. And Ty, first of all, Anish Giri, what does it look like for him right now?
It's tough. He's got to play Magnus now, and he needs more points. He is not at all safe. So I think I have him now at 64%. So that dropped. The draw combined with all the other results, he's worse off now than he was before that last round. And it's actually 4 players are still theoretically chasing him. Even Danya's sitting there with about a 2% chance. Long shot, but anything could happen in 2 more rounds.
Yeah, Vincent winning his game. He's now back in contention, even if chances are small. And for Giri, Anton, Vidit and Keymer, is it must win in the 2 final rounds?
It might be less must-win for Giri. He does have a 3-point lead on Anton already, so a draw would be enough to keep him ahead, even if Anton won a game. So Giri just needs something to be in pretty good shape, though a win would really lock him in. But for those players trying to catch up, Anton 3 points back, and the others even further, anyone else who wants to try to come from behind definitely needs to win. Well, two rounds left to win.
Absolutely. And Anish now facing Magnus Carlsen. He's going to have the black pieces as well, I think, Anish, in that game. So, or will he have the white, actually?
I think he has white in that game, but then he has black in the last round against Arjun. So also another tough one. So no easy points left for him, and he needs points.
So basically, Anish, out of these 4 players, he also has the toughest finish to the preliminaries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
And that's why he's down to 64%, is the model looking ahead at what he has to face still.
It's going to be intense and dramatic. Ty, thanks for joining. We'll see you again after the next round.
Absolutely.
Clock's ticking down, you guys, to round 14. 16 players are still competing. They are sitting in their homes all over the world, but after only 2 more rounds, 8 of them will leave the tournament, and 8 will make it through to the quarterfinals. We are going to follow Magnus Carlsen at 7 o'clock, playing from Sweden against one of his big rivals, Anish Giri, playing from the Netherlands. They are the 2 highest rated players in the tournament. Here are the games coming up in round 14. Duda still in top of the table, now facing Daniel Narditsky with a slight chance to qualify if he wins his 2 final games. But we are going to follow that big game for Anish against Magnus Carlsen, and it's also a big game for David Anton against Arjun Erigaisi, and also Richard Rapport against Vidit. These are all players fighting to qualify. So Anish now with the white pieces in this big battle. Magnus hasn't been top shape in the tournament. What should we expect from Anish coming into this game?
Well, there are 2 strategies that I feel Anish is likely to adopt. One is safety first, where he just, again, a bit like yesterday, just goes for safety, goes for a solid approach, maybe even a draw, and he just hopes that other results align for him. Hopes that maybe he gets another result in the final round, but then his fate would be out of his hands. The other approach is to go for the win, is to keep some winning chances, but that's the riskier strategy.
And of course, he is up against the best chess player in the world. Magnus is great in all aspects of the game, basically. I mean, what are the weaknesses of Magnus Carlsen, Lawrence? What can Anish play on?
Well, when he's got a cold, for example, and, when he's physically not that well, definitely impacts his performance. I mean, if you look at his performance this tournament, it's actually been, for his standards, pretty poor.
Yeah.
I think the cold has had something to do with it. So Anish is going to have to hope that that's still lingering. But just to reflect on what David was saying, I see absolutely zero zero universe in which Anish goes for it in this game. He is going to try and find a way to bore his way to a draw.
Critical moment.
Already?
We've got a spicy opening, though, so...
It's Jovanka's opening.
It's my Caracan, and Anish has chosen quite a dynamic line called the Panov Botvinnik. And here it's in Magnus's hands. What does he want to do? Does he want to develop the light square bishop and take it into an endgame? And no, he kind of goes for one of these moves that is the specialty of the English grandmaster Jonathan Spielman.
Yeah, so Black's a-pawn push, quite rare in general. There are more popular alternatives, but he has encouraged Anish to clarify the centre. And it's another isolated queen's pawn. That's the theme of the day for Anish Giri today, so far. And pressure on the Black Knight. What would you do here, Jovanka? You're the resident Caro-Kann expert. That Black Knight in the centre, would you move it? Would you exchange it off for White's Knight? Or would you maybe just solidify it, defend it?
I probably would solidify it, although I don't actually play this particular line. But I can see that you can develop the dark square, light square bishop, or you can just bishop pawn forward. But just checking my database, I'm going to check and see what the most popular move is. Develop the light square bishop and reinforce the knight.
Yeah, and we should mention Magnus. He's played the Caro-Kann in the past, but actually with very mixed results. His 125-game unbeaten streak a couple of years ago was ended by Duda in the Caro-Kann. He's played the Caro-Kann on various occasions in the tour. I remember a couple of defeats there, as well as some decent wins. But I'm pretty sure he hasn't had this exact position before. Magnus?
No, I'm pretty sure he hasn't. The database certainly confirms that. But I do remember Magnus streaming, and he played the Caro-Kann. And afterwards he said, I really should not play this opening. It doesn't suit me at all. And I was like, OK, Magnus, I take your point.
Yeah, I don't understand, because it kind of, it's right up his street, right? Caro-Kann, you get... generally, you get a good pawn structure, you get healthy pieces, very solid base foundation to work from. But yeah, Magnus somehow results far worse than in the Sicilian, in the King's Pawn openings, from what we've seen. And OK, he does defend his knight with a pawn rather than a bishop. But now White has a slightly better version of some other main lines. Black has wasted time on this pawn push on the edge of the board, so I'm not a huge fan of what Magnus is doing. Like you said, Lawrence, Anish, he has a safety net. He can take that Black Knight in the centre of the board at some point if he wants, and the pawn structure will be completely symmetrical.
All right. We already have a shocking result here in round 14. It's a very quick draw between Richard Rapport, which we can understand, and Vidit. And this is Vidit reacting to that super quick draw. He played with the black pieces, so I don't know if Richard Rapport made it just impossible not to go into that. Look at Vidit, because Vidit obviously is right outside top 8. He needs to win his games.
But I don't get his reaction at all. I mean, he played a variation where White can force the draw, so he's only got himself to blame. I mean, he played a Berlin defence. If you want to win a game, don't play the Berlin defence as Black. You can't be upset. Richard did the smart thing. He secured his top 8 position, because Richard still was... OK, he was more or less in, but this is 100% in. So I have no idea what Vidit is doing, actually. Can somebody explain it to me?
Yeah, no. I mean, Vidit, he plays pretty much everything as Black. He plays every opening. So, yeah, I agree, Lawrence. Even if you've prepared the Berlin defence for this tournament, you have to adapt according to the tournament standings.
Exactly.
So, OK, he can argue he was Black. Rapport is a fighting player. He didn't expect it. But Rapport did this against Anish just a few games ago, yesterday. So it was to be expected. If he'd done his preparation Vidit, he would have known Rapport is ready to do this.
But also, you know, he would have, if he checked the results as well, he would have seen that Rapport had beaten Erigaisi and just needed to coast the last 2 games to secure a place. And, of course, Vidit is in a must-win situation. So
it was 100% obvious that Rapport would do this.
Yeah.
It's the practical thing to do. He did it yesterday. I mean, if you look at your opponent's games in just this tournament, you know what openings they're playing. You know Rapport has forced a draw like that, so...
So Vidit could have played something completely else with the black pieces to make sure this wasn't the result.
Just anything. I mean, look at what Magnus has been doing. He's been playing all these funky moderns and French defences where there are very few forced draws. But Vidit played the most well-known forced draw variation in modern chess. So I don't know if he didn't look at the standings. I have absolutely no idea why he decided to play that opening, and now he's in big danger. I don't...
He's one of the best prepared players in the world, Vidit, in other openings. Yeah, it's just a strange choice.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of Vidit. I just want to point that out there. I absolutely love. I absolutely huge respect for Vidit. I really get on with him. I think he's an asset for chess. I think he's a great ambassador for Indian chess. But I think his reaction is inappropriate.
And he now has 18 points with only 1 point in that game against Richard Rapport. That means he is still outside top 8. If he would have won this game, he would be on 20 points. He could go past Anish Giri. And now he has David Anton chasing from behind, Vincent, Keymer and Daniel Naroditsky chasing from behind. With only 1 round left to play for Vidit, these other players are still fighting in round 14. Wow.
Actually, I'm just looking at the previous results, and now Anish Giri, if he draws against Magnus and if he draws the final game against Arjun, he's safe because he beat Vidit in their head-to-head. So Vidit's fate is... I mean, he's relying now on Magnus doing him a huge favour. But this type of opening, it's going to be hard for Magnus to win if Anish has peaceful intentions. I wonder if Anish is aware of those results, actually.
If David Anton wins the 2 final games, he will be on 22.
Yeah.
So then it's not enough for Anish with 2 draws.
Ah, that's true. That's true. OK, so David Anton is the main contender now, maybe, rather than Vidit. So, OK, Anish, meanwhile, retreating his bishop. The bishop was vulnerable on the square. It's still the isolated queen's pawn, and here, contrasted to the last game where Anish had an IQP as black. All the pieces were traded off there, and he was suffering for a long time against David Anton. Now, all the pieces still on the board. Big difference. And black's knight now, harassing the white light squared bishop, which is quite a key piece. I think Anish will drop that bishop back.
But I have to say, I'm not impressed by Magnus here at all. I mean, I've done a lot of work on these positions. I've got a number of students who play C3 Sicilians and that sort of thing. This kind of setup can really lead to very dangerous positions for black. For example, you drop the bishop back to C2, and then if black plays a move like B5, you can play a very quick queen D3, and then you're lining up that battery towards the black king. And this is particularly dangerous because, you know, if you ignore this, and this could legitimately just be on the board, let's say you play a move like bishop to B7 here, you're very close to just losing immediately, but it doesn't quite work. I think you're just OK here as black. I wanted to try the move D5, of course, to try and deflect the knight away from F6, so you're just in time. But even in this position, you don't have to go queen D3. You've got knight E5 as a move.
Yeah. You've also got the squared bishop going to G5, and black has to set up the wall formation with pawns. That's when the pawns put themselves on light squares and make a zigzag. And
yeah, we might well see this.
Yeah, I think we're probably going to see it.
I mean, it's been seen in a number of famous games as well. Yeah, I expect bishop G5 here, G6, and then I expect bishop H6, hitting the rook, rook E8 and knight E5, and then suddenly all the sacrifices become a real knight takes G6, rook takes E6, for example. So it starts to exist. It could be Anish's his what do they call it? Evergreen game of this tournament. If you remember what Shaka's done, right, so far, sacrificing knights, rooks, queens, this is exactly the sort of position, Kaja, where you can do exactly that with white. And remember, we've been talking about the isolated queen's pawn. This is exactly the sort of setup you want when you have the isolated queen's pawn as the attacker. All the pieces on, great squares for your pieces, great mobility, and then at the right moment, you just find a way to break through that that fortress.
But maybe not Anish's style, that's the only one.
Not Anish's style, but he understands, but he also understands that he, you know, this is the position that you have to play like this, so...
And this is the current position. The one thing that makes me slightly sceptical of Anish's chances is the fact that earlier he wasted a move playing this pawn push. It's like, why?
Yeah.
You could have used that to develop your bishop a bit earlier on. You could have used it to get your rook into the game a bit earlier. Anish just playing a bit safe, a bit
When did he play that, actually?
It was just a few moves ago, so it was in this position after black had castled. He just played this pawn
Yeah,
push.
this is a really weird move, because you might give your king some space, but the back rank isn't really a concern. And actually, you deprive a key square for your pieces. Often the queen can float to the h3 square.
Later.
A rook can float there. This is actually impedes the white position.
Often you push this pawn the whole way forward. Anish here, I mean, this is basically, like you said, you mentioned the c3 Sicilian. It's basically a transposition to some of those lines. It's a Caro-Kann, but you're one tempo up as white. And it's also similar to a line of the Slav, but you just drop your bishop back. That's the main move. And you basically have the same position as you do in the game, but you've got an extra time. You've got extra time because you saved on this really useless move. So
it's actually totally inexplicable, by the way, this move.
It's
in my opinion. This is like, if you ask Anish what, after the game, what is h3? Let's say he's in a good mood and he wants to talk. h3 is just...
You know what he wants to do, Lawrence?
What?
For example, if black just waits, he just wants to take in the centre and drop his bishop back, and now the black bishop can't come out. And here he would be playing for a draw. So I think that's the explanation for this.
Such a strange approach. It's just not seen in any literature anywhere on this subject. But OK.
Game position is this one, and we're expecting Anish to try and attack, maybe bring his bishop out, but is it his type of position? That's the big question.
I think, to be honest, when you're Anish Giri, number 4 or 5 in the world, you should be able to play these positions. It is it's a well-known structure. It's a well-known position. Thousands of games, and I think to be at that level, you have to know how to play this position. I think his move here, for example, is completely fine.
Is it a chance for him to really prove himself against critics?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, if Anish wins this, then he'll be full of confidence for the knockouts, pretty much guaranteeing his spot there. You mentioned this move is fine, but I like black's reply.
Oh, yeah, knight
the
c6.
black knight dropping back, and now you basically have to trade knights because black's knight also wants to jump to the b4 square, hitting the white queen, hitting white's light squared bishop. And as we mentioned in the last game, exchanging pieces when you have an isolated queen's pawn, it's not a step in the right direction. He's not worse, far from it, with white, but I don't think he's better either. I don't think it's what he could have achieved after, like you said, Magnus's slightly hesitant opening. Yeah, and this idea was seen by Aronian, the Black Knight, retreating just a few days ago in the US Championship, and there was a very quick draw in one of Aronian's games in very similar circumstances. So Anish will have been aware of this knight retreat being an option for black.
Did he want to play knight g4 here? Is this his weird idea?
Going for checkmate.
Yeah.
So black's knight dropping back, and yeah, pressure on the knight, pressure on the pawn, and you want to drop the knight back here, hoping for knight takes knight, and then queen takes would be checkmate. He's not going to fall for that, Magnus.
No.
So I guess the idea, if the knight does drop back, would be to go for this stone. What did you call it, Jovanka?
The wall.
The wall.
Whenever I set it up, because I kind of play these positions a lot, whenever I set it up, I'm like, oof, solid. I know I'm weak on the dark squares, but that doesn't matter. And instead, yeah.
That's a nice term.
It is a nice term.
The zigzag wall. Instead, he takes knights off the board.
Is it like a wall with, what do you call it? In prisons, you have electric...
electric fence?
Yeah, or like
yeah, just
pointing at the top of them.
Guess what we're going to see now? We just see it now on the board.
Yeah, no, it's in operation. And the bad news for Giri is that a set of knights have left the board, and that knight was very important in destabilizing black's defensive resources on the right. Now, I like black's position, I'll be honest with you.
I think Magnus will like his position as well.
I mean, you can try to initiate another set of trades.
Yep. You can even kick away the white knight sometimes.
Yep.
Black has a few easy moves. You just centralize your rook. You maybe move your queen out the way somewhere. Then you bring your other rook towards the center.
OK, well, Anish is switching tack. He is deciding he relocates his bishop. And perhaps there's going to be some kind of sacrifice on the e6 square. Unlikely. But more likely is actually to push the d-pawn one square forward. Yeah, you're right, David. He's in a drawing mood.
Yeah, I mean, this position I can understand why he's in a drawing mood, but maybe some missed opportunities. And I think Anish is a bit nervous. He's failed to qualify several times this season for the knockouts. He's spent a lot of time on the clock. It's move 18, but he's down. He spent half his time. And yeah, you're right, Jovanka. If he plays this move, there'll be a bunch of exchanges, most likely equality. Magnus doesn't want to allow that, though. Magnus wants to fight. And he kicks away the white knight from defending this central post. So now the knight has to move to a bit of an odd square. And yeah, still very tense. Anish unable to get pieces off the board. I don't think he'll be happy with the outcome.
Oh!
Yeah, I mean, it's no surprise the knight is on a bad square.
But I mean, are there some tricks?
Looks like there are tricks. I think Magnus missed a spot. Could he have played bishop a4 there?
You want to take this bishop?
Yeah, and go queen a5 and attack both bishops.
Double attack, hitting this one, hitting this one. This would force white to trade off another set of pieces, and actually black's bishop is far better than white's. White's is bad, and this is a clear weakness. I think you're right, Lawrence. That was surely the reason why the evaluation bar shot up for black. But
very surprised that Magnus spent so little time on that move, because it felt like a moment where you actually had to invest a bit more to clarify things. And now, okay, you give white half a move.
Yeah, I can understand Magnus kind of playing immediately if there's another natural alternative, but this is hardly natural, this rook move. I guess he wants to swing across, start attacking the weak, isolated pawn. But, yeah, missed opportunity. And that's where, again, just for Super Grandmasters, having the evaluation bar is so important. If Magnus had seen that the evaluation bar went to, 0.8 for black, he would instantly have known, OK, there's something direct. But he wasn't. He's not privy to that information. So, OK, let's go back to the game. Anish under clock pressure. Not easy for him.
Yeah.
7 minutes down on the clock.
If he loses this game, he will be so nervous heading into round 15.
And this is what tends to happen, actually. Even though Magnus might not have played objectively the best move there, the momentum swings in these isolated pawn positions are quite drastic. If your attack suddenly stops working, like it has here for Anish, you've got a knight on a4, which is a bit awkward, loose bishop on g5, your g2 square is very vulnerable to some shots. You suddenly go on the back foot here, and you're playing Magnus Carlsen, and suddenly you're like, oh, I'm a lot worse. Oh, he's defended everything. Oh, he's won my d4 pawn, and I'm going to lose an ending. And that is a legitimate scenario now. I think Anish didn't show too much experience, actually. It felt like to me that he's just not that well, he's not used to playing these positions with white, even though, of course, he's a phenomenal genius. He hasn't probably had this, because I think most players would have gone bishop g5, g6, bishop h6, knight e5, and not allowed this trade of pieces.
That's what we showed earlier, yeah.
Yeah.
And again, maybe it's just a repertoire thing. Anish likes to have openings where he has a solid foundation. Here, it's not a solid pawn structure for white. Again, Anish playing for maybe the most obvious move, improving his worst placed piece, the rook. But maybe it doesn't get to the heart of the position. He has to be active because long-term, isolated pawn.
Yeah, and I also wonder whether Magnus's sly rook move also had another hidden purpose to it. Maybe to line up the queen and the light square bishop on the same diagonal and start hitting at the pawn next to the white king.
Yeah, the black queen could go into the corner. Looks counterintuitive, but you're right, Jovanka. It's quite a typical idea in these types of positions. When you have a fianchettoed bishop, a queen often helps it gain power, lined up behind. So we'll see what Magnus does. But yeah, I mean, if Anish doesn't qualify now for the knockouts, yesterday's decisions, I mean, it reminded me, I was at home last night just thinking, and I was like, actually, there have been a few situations in my career when I was younger that I made similar decisions to Anish. I was leading the European Championship in 2017 by half a point, 3 rounds left. I was a bit unwell, so I took a quick-ish draw with white, about 20 moves, and then I lost my next one. And I thought, OK, that's karma. I deserve that. And the same British Championship one year, I was really unwell, but I was leading, so I took a quickish draw with black. So against one of my main rivals, I thought, that's a decent result. Next day, I got punished immediately. So it's just, I don't know whether it's the chess gods or whether it's our own minds, but he'll have a guilty conscience, Anish, about his decisions yesterday, and that might affect his moves now. And OK, black's knight parking itself in the centre. Very sensible.
It is very sensible. I have to say, just to add to David's point, I think it's in our own minds, to be honest, because we see...
You're not religious, believing in the chess gods, Jovanka?
Yeah, I believe in the chess gods. Let me just clarify that. But I mean, I was thinking about other players, you know, I mean, I think those people who like fighting chess in general, I think they will feel guilty and it will have an impact on them. Then you have other pragmatic players like Wesley So, you know, who knows how to just play professional chess at the right moment, and then he knows also when to go forth and attack. And it works very well for Wesley.
Yeah, it does. It works very, very well. And meanwhile, Magnus has made a couple of very decent moves, but White now has got his knight into a better square, and Magnus trying to trade off the dark squared bishops. They do leave the board. Some big threats against the white king now. You have to be very careful. The black queen's active. What do you guys think? Sensible stuff from Anish so far, but he needs a good move now, right?
He's going to play queen g3 here, 100%.
I think he's going to try and swap off the queens. Maybe the white knight could step back and attack the black queen.
Yeah, I think attack the queen.
But
it's way too risky to trade.
Well, to play
queens.
queen g3?
Yeah.
Endgame against Magnus with a worse pawn structure.
Yeah, but...
I mean, Magnus has the better pieces, has everything there. No, you don't want to touch that.
Okay.
Keep the... I agree with David. Attack the queen.
Yeah, we can show those two options right now that we're considering. Both of them would be to do with this black queen. There are some indirect threats against this pawn now. The bishop from afar lining up. If white were to play a terrible move here, then the black knight would come in, and this would be disastrous, hitting the pawn this way, and this way 3 times, and this would end in a black win, simply. So white now, Anish Giri needs to stop that. Lawrence is suggesting this queen move. Makes a lot of sense, getting the queens off the board. It's probably roughly level, but I'm just slightly sceptical that Anish will go for this, because this pawn could be a weakness long term. I think Magnus would love massaging an advantage in this endgame later on, if he can. The other alternative would be to attack the queen, kick her away. Either with a rook, I'm not sure, this looks a bit superficial, or with the knight to force her to retreat. But, I mean, wherever she goes, she doesn't even need to retreat. Maybe she'll just park herself on the edge of the board. Black still has control over most of the important squares. Black has obvious moves as well. Black can push a pawn, black can centralise his rooks later, black can move his king. I'm not sure what white does.
Wow.
In the meantime, okay, Anish does go with the rook. He needed to kick the queen away, makes sense. Now, where is she going? Do you think Anish's idea, if the queen moves, is to drop his rook back and
yes.
try to heat and go for a draw?
You're in his mind, David.
Trying to be.
But after rook e4, knight f4 just wins, doesn't it?
Yeah, I was just trying to look for convoluted ways of getting that draw that Anish would probably like in this position. Okay, the queen does move.
Okay.
So this move, we mentioned attacking the queen. Yeah, it doesn't work because of Lawrence's knight move. Hitting the queen and hitting the rook. So we're looking for something else. And, okay, he's really trying to get rid of all the tension, swapping off pieces and grabbing a pawn, Anish. Maybe we've been too harsh, being greedy here. Shows ambition. He's won a pawn. He's attacking this guy as well. Yeah, maybe it's fine. The knight's never trapped because it can always retreat to this square. Black's queen now going back to defend this pawn. And Anish has won. Bit of a smash and grab, that one. He's won a pawn on the edge of the board.
He only has 3 minutes on the clock, though. Magnus, almost 12 minutes left on the clock. Do you think this will end up with a winner in this game?
I have a feeling there are some twists and turns ahead, but it's hard to say in whose favour that might be.
We do know Anish Giri is maybe the hardest player in top chess to beat.
Yeah.
He hardly ever loses.
Normally when he doesn't want to lose, he'll find a way to survive. He's very tenacious. He very rarely blunders in one move. But it's still...
That's true.
A lot of life left. Normally when he loses, it's because he's pushing and then he kind of pulls the brakes at the wrong time and then it rebounds.
And talking about Anish blundering, I mean, this is a very critical moment in the game because there's a big threat on the board, right? The bishop can come down and grab a pawn.
Yeah, let's show this. He's got to be careful if he moves a rook, for example, then maybe you'll move Jovanka. think it works, taking this pawn, and if the king moves, you've actually put the king on a bad square, and this is an idea you mentioned quite a lot earlier, the queen on the long diagonal, this is a check, next move, the knight will drop. So you've given up your bishop, but in return you get a knight and a pawn, and you've ruined the white king position.
Less than 2 minutes now for Anish.
Yeah, he's way down on the clock, actually. Look, he's 10 minutes behind, and actually, you know, this is the danger of playing like this as well with white. You get into these tricky positions where you suddenly need to calculate, you burn a bunch of time, and I think Magnus is going to be relatively happy here, actually.
And here he comes.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Your idea, Jovanka, takes his pawn.
Bingo.
But Anish has calculated this. He's hoping that he can, I think, swap off the queens. Either blocking now or by pushing his pawn forward first.
I thought pushing the pawn forward.
Maybe pushing the pawn. And, for example, if Magnus swaps the queens off, then this will go into a dead drawn rook endgame. 3 pawns versus 3 pawns, easy draw. If Magnus wants to win, he's got to play this move, rook takes. I still prefer black, though, because of the king being a bit weak. But Anish doesn't push his pawn in the centre. He tries to offer the queen exchange, and Magnus says yes. Magnus allows the queens to come off. Anish is close to the draw now, surely. It's still a bit difficult for white because all 4 pawns are isolated. Black has 1 pawn island. They will defend each other, the wall. But white's far from solid there. It shouldn't be enough, though, with just rooks on the board.
No, it looks like a draw. Looks like Anish has got what he wanted.
Yeah. Are you surprised Magnus took the queens off? I thought maybe he would try and keep them on if possible. Maybe it just wasn't easy.
Yeah, d5's a good move here. That's the way to play.
Yeah, giving up a pawn, but he's just swapping off some of his weaknesses.
But
you go rook a5.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. You can try and pin, maybe not necessarily win.
Yeah, if Anish gets time to trade off another set of pawns, it should be a draw, especially if one set of rooks leave the board. 3 versus 2 on the same side is quite straightforward. It's very elementary. Okay, this is the move, the only ambitious move. Magnus doesn't look too ambitious, though, just grimacing. This is a pin on the 5th rank, but the white rook can move.
Yeah.
This is another pin, and we're headed towards a draw. Black's going to be a pawn up, but you can't create a passed pawn simply. 3 versus 2.
Anish will then be on 20 points. And the big question is, can David Anton win in round 14? He is playing with the white pieces against Arjun Erigaisi. That is the big threat for Anish Giri. And also, if he loses in the last round, then Vidit can also go past him with a win in the last round.
Erigaisi's doing him a favour at the moment, though, beating David Anton. So Anish looks like the stars are aligning for him. He's still a big favourite going into that last round. We're assuming this is a draw, just because black has no real way to make progress. As soon as the black king pops its head out, it's going to get checked and kicked away. As soon as black starts pushing pawns, that will just lead to exchanges. Actually, having split pawns here for white, not next to each other, helps, because it's harder for black to create a passed pawn in these types of endgames. Magnus will try. Not sure for how long, but he'll try and push for a while. I don't really see a winning plan for black in these positions either. I think in a classical game, in a long game, if Anish had more than 2 minutes, Magnus would just play 5 moves and agree a draw.
And actually, we have a result. It's a loss for David Anton to Arjun Erigaisi. That means David Anton is now stuck on 16 points and can max get 19 points if he wins in the next one. Anish is about to go up to 20. So that means it's going to be Vidit or Anish. Vidit, he has to win then in the last round, and he needs to hope Anish loses, right? Because head-to-head...
I did check that 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because Vidit lost to Anish. So Vidit and Anish are the 2 players that will be fighting for the 8th place.
Yeah. So Anish, he'll do the calculations, right, after this game. Assuming he draws, he'll realise that he just needs to draw in the final round.
Although also Vincent Keymer, if he wins in this round, and in the next one, he will also have 21 points.
And Anish and Vincent drew.
And Vincent against Vidit then, if it's 3 players, he lost to Vidit. So that probably means Vidit, if they're all on 21 points.
But Anish beat Vidit and
Oh,
drew
wait,
Vincent.
that's true. So then it goes to the...
It's like a circle.
Yeah.
Who beat who?
Tiebreaker.
Then it goes to the most wins.
Okay.
Right.
So we need our sparkly calculator out.
Yeah, where's my glittery calculator?
Yeah, I know.
We need Ty back. Bring Ty back on.
We'll ask Ty about the details after this round. But David Anton losing in this round means he's out of contention. Anish Giri is probably on 20 points after this round. And Vidit, he is on 18 points after this round. He already finished. 1 round left to play.
Yeah, and the same game, I guess there's just not much to say. White has got the perfect defensive formation. Black's king is advanced, but it's still cut off, and Anish can just wait. Any pawn advance, any pawn exchanges, just guide the game closer to the draw. Lawrence, have you ever had endgames like this?
Yeah, I have had endgames like this. Very difficult to lose. You really have to try hard to mess this one up. Anish is just far too good to spoil this. Maybe there's 1 or 2 little tricks, are there?
No.
There is... No, because even, for example, after king g3 here, David, let's say you play the move g5, which you don't really want to play, but just to illustrate, takes. Let's say white now plays the move... well, you would go down to the back, I guess.
Yeah, you'd probably go behind and start checking.
But just even if you go rook c4, let's just say...
wait.
Well, let's say black now plays f4 check, king h3, rook f2.
Do you know what I'll play here, Lawrence?
Rook takes
take
four.
Rook takes f4. Yeah, this is very nice.
The problem is it's stalemate.
This is beautiful.
But even if white goes passive, for example, this is still a draw. I think your trick was to take this pawn,
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
But unfortunately, this check would go to a drawn king and pawn endgame. This is a draw as long as the king is in front of the pawn. And eventually Magnus will have to try something like that. But even if we try and trick white, it doesn't quite work. And yeah, unfortunately, you can't attack this pawn with your rook. That's the other issue right now. That's why Magnus was trying to sneak behind, perhaps, but Anish says, no, I'm defending this pawn. And just nothing else to do apart from push your pawns, exchange off weaknesses for white. And 2 versus 1, easy draw now. Still no way through. And I think we're going to see Magnus try a few more moves before admitting defeat in his winning attempts. And meanwhile...
And just like magic.
Just like magic, we've got the sparkly calculator, and I'm going to do some maths.
Yes.
Take it away, guys.
We're going to need it now. Anish Giri on 20 after this game, probably. It's going to be between him, Vidit, and maybe Vincent Keymer. If Vincent is able to win in this round, he is currently playing against Harikrishna. What chances who do you think right now will be the one taking the spot number 8, David?
Mathematically, I've crunched the numbers already.
Yes, very nice.
It's got to be Anish. I think he's in pole position. He's still got his fate in his own hands. If he draws this, a win in the last round, he's there. The others have to win and hope. So all of my tournaments, whenever I'm in those situations, relying on other results, you don't feel any certainty. And OK, Anish, he's going behind with the white rook now. He's going to draw this game. Just give a few checks.
And I should, of course, also mention Naroditsky, who is also on 15 points. If he also wins both in this round and the next round, he will also be on 21 points. But the bar is over to Duda's side in that game. And if he loses, it's over for Naroditsky. These are the current standings. A few games have finished, a bunch still going on. And we do see Anish on 19, about to go up to 20 points. Vidit 18, David Anton losing. It's over for him. He's stuck now on 16 points. But Vincent Keymer and Naroditsky on 15, still fighting for points in this round.
And I think we're going to see a draw any moment. The players are repeating moves. Do we have a result there? There we go. Anish might feel like he got away with one.
Yeah, shaking his head. He is definitely aware that this does not secure his spot in the knockout stage. He needs point in the final round as well. And in that final round, who will Anish Giri play?
Arjun Erigaisi.
Aha, tough finish.
But he did in the last Julius Baer Cup. he did actually beat Erigaisi with the black pieces. So maybe, you know, he'll be feeling confident, or maybe Erigaisi will be looking for revenge.
Yeah, and Erigaisi is coming from a win in this tournament. Erigaisi also beat Magnus in this tournament. He's doing some impressive stuff, young Erigaisi, up against Anish in the final round. Vincent Keymer, he needs to win this game. It's must win for him to have any chances to qualify. Harikrishna has struggled in the tournament. The bar slightly over to Keymer's side. Chances to win.
It reminds you of a certain position. Does this position remind you of something, Kaja?
Remember, I don't have chess memory.
It reminds me of something.
It will certainly remind these two of something.
It reminds me of this the game that Magnus Carlsen played against Vincent Keymer.
Okay. In this tournament?
No, in the one before that, the 93 move marathon.
Aha.
Semi-finals of the Julius Baer Generation Cup. In that one, colours were reversed, right? Vincent had black.
Yeah.
And actually, if you take away the black C pawn and the white E pawn, and put them on the F file instead, that's almost identical, the position. Bishop versus knight endgame, and Magnus ground down Vincent when Magnus had the bishop. And it looks like Vincent's learnt that lesson. He's playing with the bishop this time. Pawns on both sides of the board. Big favourite to win it.
Really? So he could grind this down to a win?
Yeah, he got ground down against Magnus, but these youngsters, that's why they're so good. They learn from their defeats, and then they inflict defeats on their future opponents using similar ideas.
But clock times, 45 seconds left for Vincent. More than, what is it, 8 or 6 minutes?
6 minutes.
6 minutes for Harikrishna. Is it possible in that short amount of time?
It should be.
Okay.
You can kind of gain a lot of time as well because nothing immediate's happening. For example, if Vincent's nervous, he can just move his bishop about 3 or 4 times, gain 30, 40 seconds on the clock. The reason this is so good for White is that, firstly, White's king is more active. White has a passed pawn in the centre, but White's king is ready to kind of sidestep. I call this the dance when White's king hints it's going one way, then the black pieces kind of react, go one way, then it actually jumps the other side of the board. Black's knight, for example, is stuck, stopping the white king going forward. Black's king is basically just waiting. Vincent just needs an entry point. Predictions here? You think he's going to finish it off?
Tough one. Harikrishna is such a tough player in these endings. Actually, Harikrishna lost a heartbreaking game, didn't he, in the Olympiad, in an ending to Sargsyan. Yeah. Where Sargsyan had the 2 bishops in that game, but Harikrishna, he's more than capable of drawing this, but this is so unpleasant, this endgame, to play as black. Doesn't look like it, but it really is. But Vincent has to find an idea here. And I think probably the idea, David, what about if we play, bishop e2, and at some point I want to play a4.
Yeah. Just soften up Black's pawns on that left side.
Precisely.
Oh, wait.
I think they've repeated the position 3 times.
No.
Oh, Vincent, he's out of the running. Oh. Maybe by accident, maybe he just didn't see any way to go forward. Repeats the position and draw.
That means only 16 points for him. He can max get 19 points, and that will not be enough to qualify for the knockout stage. We wanted to see him fight on in this game, but it is over. Aditya Mittal, he is also knocked out of a tournament, an international master who had a very good tournament, but now playing against Gukesh. They are both 16, actually, and it's Gukesh winning this game. Maybe?
First of all, I was doing a quick count because I was like, where's Black's second rook? White is just a rook up. But Black has a big advantage because Black has 3 pawns in return for a rook. And what a cool position.
Black still has all his pawns.
Black has all of his pawns and it's moved 33.
Whoa.
How did White even win the black rook if all the pawns are still on the board? But Black's pawns are just too strong. If you look especially on the left side of the board, the left half, Black has 4 versus 1 on the 4 ranks, on the 4 files over there. I still don't see a breakthrough. A lot of work for Gukesh ahead, and it could turn around if the lines open up for the white rooks. But White is a rook up for just 3 pawns. Who would you guys pick if you didn't see the evaluation bar? I guess it's hard to say now, but...
It's very difficult because the pawns have a big psychological effect. I mean, it's like that game, where you've got all your pieces, but your opponent has, how many pawns is it in the game Horde? It's like this wall of pawns coming at you. But then on the other hand, when you are playing with the pawns, you have to be so mindful of the piece activity. I mean, I think I would take the pawns because, you know me, I like to push pawns, but it's a close call.
Yeah, and Gukesh, he wants even more pawns. He's in the mood to go grabbing. That black queen is attacking the white A pawn. Do you defend it? Can you defend it? It's just so hard to calculate. I mean, there's already... OK, the white queen drops back to defend, but I was going to say there's already very critical variations. The black knight now rerouting. If white ever gets greedy and pushes pawn forward in the centre, then black's pawns advance even further. I just don't see any active moves for Mittal right now.
No, I don't see. So that's why he's reduced to just waiting with his king. But the problem is there's not too much for Gukesh to do. OK, well, Aditya is the one moving forward with his pawns.
Yeah, he's maybe giving Gukesh something to do. If white pushes too far forward, he leaves weaknesses. The black knight can jump in. Let's ignore the evaluation bar for now. We know black's doing well because of that massive pawns, that horde of pawns, but we need a breakthrough. I'm not sure what the black rook's doing on the square. Maybe he can retreat it at some point, reroute the black knight somewhere. We need a plan.
Maybe...
I like this move, queen c6.
Lining up against the white king.
Yep.
And where's he going?
Well...
Just waiting.
Is there a threat of actually pushing a pawn forward? Potentially?
Yeah, maybe. The black B pawn could step forward at some point. Got to time it correctly. Does white continue blockading somehow? He just waits with the white king. But that feels very loose. The white king is vulnerable to some checks over there.
Also feels like you push one pawn and suddenly the queen is released and can grab the pawn on f3. That's definitely in the air.
Yeah, white is full of weaknesses, his position right now. Gukesh with a bit, well, I say big, but a decent time advantage at the moment as well. Extra 40 seconds. I would just probe for a while without committing, maybe just jump around with the black knight.
Yeah, knight g5 is really crying out to be played here.
Yeah, Gukesh, time dropping. OK, he just waits. The queen came from this square, so he's happy to repeat the position almost. It feels like he wants to make the breakthrough. He's just not ready yet.
But knight g5 is... How do you defend?
Yeah, you've got to...
Defend with the king.
Yeah, you have to step forward with the king.
Yeah.
And 40 seconds for Gukesh.
But you can just take on f3 and d4 check.
Maybe that's the killer blow. Oh, I think you've seen it, Lawrence. Gukesh fails to spot it, just improving the black king. But maybe this was the killer, bringing the knight to attack this pawn. And if it's defended by the white king, you just grab it. And you lure the white king out, and then discover check. You hit the king, you also hit the queen, and you win. Gukesh could have won on the spot. Maybe he can do it again right now.
Yeah,
he's got a second chance. He missed the tactic the first time, but this move by Lawrence was winning again on the spot.
Very, very simple tactic as well. I mean, kind of surprised. Kind of surprised he's not seeing it, to be honest.
Maybe the black position is just so good. He's not looking for something direct. He's looking for kind of long-term plans. Again, he's got a third opportunity to do this. He doesn't go for it.
Incredible.
Oh.
Where's the king going? Where's the king going this way? Jovanka, you were momentarily maybe looking at taking this
I
pawn.
was momentarily looking at that, but I mean, also it's so strange. You voluntarily put the king in the eye line of the rook.
Yeah, I guess his idea is here he would push his pawn forward and white would have to sacrifice the rook and black would be better in the endgame, but you're right, it just looks so unnatural.
It definitely looks unnatural. I mean, I was thinking of pushing pawns and trying to destabilize.
And he's got maybe like a sixth time lucky. Is he going to go for this tactic? I'm not sure it even works now because black's king's out in the open.
Yeah, he needs to put his king away.
Yeah, it probably doesn't work because you're self-pinned now. You can't actually win the queen.
Actually, it doesn't win now.
Move it back away.
Let's show this idea. This is a discovered check, as we showed, but now you can't take the white queen because your king is out in the open, and he's still missing it. He's had 4 or 5 opportunities at least. In the current position, he can go for it again. He can still go for this winning idea, but failing.
Total blind spot, isn't it? Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
He hasn't seen this one clear plan. it's actually obvious once you see it, but it's the clock situation. He's not looking in that direction.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering whether white can actually initiate a breakthrough as well by pushing the f-pawn forward. But no, okay, moves the rook.
Okay, okay, he missed it for the 10th time in a row.
But, you know, it's not easy. You know,
It's
sometimes...
not running away either.
No.
It isn't easy, but come on, Jovanka, it is the most. It's the first candidate. You look at the weakness in the white position. The only weakness is the f3 pawn. You can see that the only way to defend it is king g2, and then the king is lined up on the long diagonal. It's a very intuitive continuation.
15 seconds. Will he find it?
Well, he hasn't.
He doesn't.
No, he hasn't seen it for all this time. I mean, it's just like a blind spot. You know, the players are playing with no time on the clock. It's panic. I mean, I don't think we can be too damn.
But Gukesh is in, right?
Yeah.
So
21. He's not 100%
Well,
oh, maybe not actually.
Probably
true.
one draw in the last 2 games will secure it, and he's not in any danger here at all as black, right? Even if he just
if he
sits tight.
draws either this one last game, he is definitely
6 seconds.
ready.
4 seconds. 3 seconds. Aditya
2.
make a move.
Oh, did he make a move in time?
He did.
With 2 seconds left. And he advances with the white queen. There was maybe a threat of black's knight coming the other way to kick away the white queen anyway, so he's preempting that. But he's letting the black pawns run. That's risky. And they are stepping forward. And Mittal immediately shook his head. 5 seconds to react to this. We said earlier, 2 pawns on the 6th rank. Here, white's 3rd rank.
Oh, make a move. And he's just retreated the rook. Oh, no. Poor Aditya Mittal. He's just panicking now.
I think you can trap the white queen as well. The black knight can come and hit the queen, and she's trapped. We will see a result.
Boy.
Yeah, nowhere to run. No squares. This black pawn's too strong. Mittal, will he play another move?
Or has.
Okay, he does, but this one is hopeless. The white queen is simply captured. Queen down, and he's going to resign.
It's going to be a win for Gukesh. What a good fight, though, by Aditya Mittal.
Yeah. And we can't blame him for playing on. It's been a really fascinating game, and black's pawns are just too strong. There we go. We have the result.
There it is over. That means Gukesh is definitely ready for the knockout stage with 24 points here. And what a cool game. I think he still had all 8 pawns left on the board when this game finished. What happened?
Yeah, it was a really fascinating struggle in the end, and this does show the power of pawns. We joined it quite late, but white had an extra rook. Black had 3 pawns in return, and these 3 pawns turned out to be too strong. They blocked out the rooks. Remember, rooks are only powerful if they have open lines. Whites didn't have access to any in this game. And here, white moved his rook. Gukesh had a nice tactic. He could have won on the spot by bringing his knight to this square, attacking a loose pawn. There's no real good way to defend it. If you defend it with a king, then knight takes pawn is a nice tactic, lining up a discovered check. Also winning the white queen on the next turn. Gukesh, however, found a different maneuver, equally powerful, bringing his knight the other way. And this one is very logical, supporting the advance of these pawns. The knight is coming to kick away the white queen. Queens are the worst blockaders in chess. The black knight is going to come and kick her away. But after she stepped out of the way, the pawns started rolling. And the final killer blow, knight to a6, trapping this white queen. Nowhere to run, every escape square covered by a black pawn.
One more round to be played in the preliminaries. We will follow game in round 15 between Arjun Erigaisi, the young Indian, against Anish Giri. Anish, if he draws, he will be ready for the knockout stage. But if he loses, Vidit can still take the final place in the knockout stage. So with the black pieces, Anish Giri, what can he do in that game? These are the results from round 14. Eventually a win to end all hopes for Naroditsky to qualify for Jan-Krzysztof Duda with 3 points. Mamediaro 3 points against Nils Grandelius. Erik Hansen, he finally got a win against Abdusatorov, and a good win as well. Gukesh, as we saw, 3 points against Mittal and eventually Arjun Erigaisi. He won against David Anton to end David Anton's chances of qualifying. These are now the standings with one round left to play. Duda on top of the table. 2 points behind him is Mamedyarov, and 2 players on 24 points. That is Gukesh and Erigaisi, the 2 young Indians. Abdusatorov and Magnus Carlsen both on 23 points. It's been a long time since we've seen Magnus Carlsen that far down on the table in the preliminaries. Richard Rapport, he is now safe with 22 points, but Anish Giri on 20 points is not 100% safe. If he loses, and Vidit now on 18 points wins in the final game, then Vidit will take the final spot. And it's going to be Erigaisi against Anish in that final round. Vidit plays against David Anton. Those will be the 2 most important games to follow. In that final round, Magnus finishes off the preliminaries against the leader of the tournament, Jan-Krzysztof Duda. We'll keep an eye on that as well. But we are joined by Ty, and am I correct, Ty, to say that a draw secures Anish a spot in the quarterfinals?
It does, yes. This is about as straightforward of a final round as we're ever going to see.
Definitely. And for Vidit, obviously, it's just a must-win situation, and then he'll have to check what Anish does afterwards.
Yeah, he has to win and then hope that Anish finds a way to lose.
Absolutely, yeah. Here we have your projected results. It now says over 90% chance for Anish Giri. It's down to 8% for Vidit. But these 2 are the only 2 players left to fight for that 1 spot.
Mm-hmm. And there's actually an identical scenario going on at the top for the number 1 seed, with Duda 2 points ahead of Shock and has the tiebreak.
Okay. Interesting.
So that's also possibly something to keep an eye on, but I don't think the number 1 seed matters as much as 8th place.
Absolutely. And it's always interesting also to follow who Magnus Carlsen plays in the quarterfinals. A lot of people, I think, will be hoping for Magnus against Mamedyarov, because Mamedyarov is just playing the most crazy chess in this tournament. What needs to happen for those 2 to meet in the quarterfinals?
You know, I hadn't even thought to look at that. I don't have those scenarios. I will say, glancing at the standings right now, it's Carlsen in 5th and Gukesh in 4th. I wouldn't mind that as a quarterfinal matchup either, myself as a fan.
I agree. I agree.
So
We'll get a good, interesting matchup for sure. Every one of those top 8 would be fun to see. But yeah, I don't have any odds on who he might play right now.
We usually have so much to discuss when it comes to who will qualify, but right now it is only down to 2 players, Vidit and Anish, in that final round. Finally, a little bit easier for us with only those 2 to focus on. Now, in terms of performance rating and stuff like that, who has actually impressed the most? Is it Duda on top of the table?
I would imagine, let me switch tabs. Yeah, Duda is the only player with a performance rating over 2,800 in this tournament so far. He's at 2,833. And then Shock, in 2nd place, has a 2,796 performance rating. So if Shock manages to win, he'll get his performance rating up over 2,800 and has the...
Oh, I think we're losing Ty. Connection.
That chance to chase Duda down for the...
All right. I think we're losing you, Ty. Connection is a little bad, but we got the most important parts of that. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you. The connection knew I didn't have anything to say.
Internet is great like that. No, thank you, Ty. That was very informative, as always.
Absolutely.
Nice to see you again. All right, you guys, it's getting close in only a few minutes, the final round and the preliminaries, and we will follow Anish Giri. He has the black pieces against Arjun Erigaisi. And with the black pieces, you know, he only needs a draw. But how difficult is it to force a draw with the black pieces?
It's very difficult to force a draw with the black pieces. I mean, because Erigaisi will be looking to put pressure on him. He controls the pace of the game, so it's going to be tough uphill battle.
Yeah. All right, before that all starts, it's finally time for the Aimchess analysis. One of you at home will get your online performance analyzed by David, and it's Otis Moss this time, saying an analysis of my games would help me defeat my chess mates in university. How cool! So David, how can you help Otis?
Well, I'm going to try my best, Otis, to help you. I checked out your profile over there on chess.com. It looks like you're out there in Mexico. And let's try and help you beat your classmates. And here, first of all, on Aimchess, we see your general graph. This is something that we look at before going deep, going on a deeper dive at all the details. Here we see the graph compared to your peers, so players of similar rating to you on chess.com. And here we see the outline of the graph where you should be expected to be. So actually, you've done very well to reach your rating, despite maybe the graph not being, despite some of the points not being your strongest. Let's start with openings. As usual, your peers score 62% here, which is actually very high. Openings do need a bit of work. If you improve in this phase of the game, you give yourself a better foundation, a better base with which to win games. We should mention these are your most recent 35 Blitz games. We will go into openings in more detail in a moment. Tactics clearly need work as well. 33% hit rate on tactics isn't ideal. Here, I would recommend checking out tactics trainers on one of these websites or trying the personalized lessons on Aimchess. These are very effective, taking examples from your own games. Endgames as well, down at 20% win rate for endgames. Here, I would recommend studying the games of Magnus, Carlsen, of Anish, Giri, of Richard Rapport, of all these top endgame players. Advantage capitalization. Here, you do okay, but again, you should ideally be wanting to finish off more of those strong positions that you get. And resourcefulness, maybe one of the better stats, saving 25% of games where you have a losing disadvantage, but could still be improved. And time management also could be worked on. But win rates, we actually see a big discrepancy between your white games and your black games. You score very highly with black, 40%. That's actually around the worldwide average, so that's decent, but 25% win rate with white. It's clear that openings for white need a lot of work. And here you can get more detailed breakdown from Aimchess. Check out some of its advice here, and we'll look at some of the openings as well. Okay, opening-wise, you do, remember, score very well with black, but poorly with white, so work on those openings. Check out the specifics in the Aimchess report. And I'm just going to fast forward now to my favorite part of every report. It looks like you do actually pretty decently on weekdays, especially at the beginning of the week, and especially on Sundays. So play on days where you're best rested. It looks like the middle of the week is a bit tough for you. So make sure you play your university classmates at the weekend or on Mondays.
Very cool, and best of luck in your games against university classmates. Otis, all right, we are getting very close to the final round. 16 players still with us, but 8 will leave us after this round, and we're going to follow Anish Giri in his fight against Arjun Erigaisi. And here we go. Anish, he only needs a draw in this game, but can Arjun Erigaisi push for a win? Can we say out of the opening already?
London system. Jovanka, you play this one.
I
winning
do
chances,
play this
winning
one.
attempt?
Yeah, there's plenty of winning chances, but you can see that Anish is ready to kind of shut the game down. He chooses to advance in the center with his pawns. And again, he's kind of playing the most critical lines, developing the knights. And the big question here is, will he capture the pawn in the middle? If he's feeling very aggressive, he'll develop the queen. Oh, the knight has come out to attack the bishop.
Yeah, this is still well-known stuff. White has a couple of moves here. White can even go and grab a pawn. That has been played recently by some strong players, but this, I think, is the critical move, bringing the dark square bishop into the center. And there are some tactics there. There's some crazy games that I've seen in the past where black's pawn went to attack this white bishop in the center, but no, instead Anish taking a more solid approach. And Arjun trying to explode open the position. Makes sense while the black knight is sitting on the edge of the board. And Jovanka, have there been many games in this variation before?
Not many games, but the games that have been played, they've been really good by highbrow players. We have Danu Dubov playing it with the white pieces, Srinath Narayan, Nihal Sarin, Jumbayev, Sedlak, who is an opening expert on the London system. So, yep, actually, most of those games finished in a draw.
Okay, and pawn capture in the centre of the board looks logical to me. those games that ended in a draw. Was this the move that was chosen?
Yep.
Okay, so Anish has done his homework. We mentioned that the draw would be a decent result for him.
And now I think the most popular move is actually for white to also capture the d5 pawn in the middle.
Okay, so Arjun has a few captures to consider. He can take back this pawn that's just moved with his knight, his bishop, or his pawn, but Jovanka mentions the other pawn capture, maybe the critical one.
Yeah.
And Arjun maybe is as well just thrown by Anish's speed. Anish is clearly one of the best prepared players in the world, so he would have looked at this before, and that's maybe a bit unsettling for Arjun.
Obviously, Erigaisi, he is also happy with the draw in this game with 24 points, but he is a teammate of Vidit. They played on, both played on India 1, right, during the Olympiad. So will there be some sort of a team feeling there? Will he really fight hard to win this game to give Vidit chances to qualify?
I don't know the answer to that question. I'll be honest.
I have a feeling, though, that the Indian team spirit is very strong.
I think I would say that as well. But I mean, it's very important to finish well in the standings here. I mean, it means if you have a very high placing, it means you get to choose the tie breaks, the colours of the tie breaks, and you just might have a better pairing system. So I think it's very important to do as well as you can. And if that means defeating Anish, so be it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Anish now just looks very calm. It looks like he's maybe just closing his eyes, trying to remember some variations. Arjun taking some time. And yeah, Arjun's had a bit of an up and down tournament. Lots of wins, but also a few losses here and there. He definitely hasn't been playing safety first chess. So I just have a feeling he's trying to cook up something a bit surprising for Anish. OK, he does go for the main move that you mentioned, Jovanka, the move that has been played before. And, OK, this is new to me, I've got to admit. Has this been Black's main reply, coming out with the queen?
It's quite funny because there's been like 6 games in the database and every single one ended with queen takes pawn. And now every single one of those 6 players, they actually developed the light square bishop to attack the queen.
Yeah, makes sense. The black queen is vulnerable. Normally, you don't want to bring her out too early. If she's getting kicked around the board, she is the best piece, the most valuable piece. So anytime she gets attacked, she has to run. That's why we don't want to bring the queen out too early. We lose a lot of time. So, OK, Arjun plays the most natural move.
Oh!
And a novelty.
No, it's not a novelty. No, it's not a novelty.
You got so excited. What happened?
No. It's because, you know, something that had me chuckling away was what King Charles said to Liz Truss after they met again. And he goes, back again, dear oh dear. And I've been waiting for the moment to say this line, you know, and there you go. The king can turn around to the queen and go, dear oh dear.
Yeah, so Anish has lost 2 moves with the black queen, but I guess he's cleared up the centre a bit. He's clarified the tension there. We're likely to see either white get an isolated pawn, just like we've seen in 2 games already today, or we're going to see a very symmetrical pawn structure where Erigaisi won't have too many winning chances. I'm guessing here that white usually captures back the pawn in the centre of the board. But a couple of choices there.
And every one of those games, they've picked up the bishop and they've captured the pawn. So they've kept the pawn structure intact.
Yeah. Do we think Arjun, is he freestyling, or is he maybe aware of those previous games, the draws that have happened in this position, and he's just trying to come up with something new to test Anish with? He can kind of play with freedom, right, Arjun?
Feels like a freestyle to me.
OK. Takes with the pawn. Isolated queen's pawn for the 3rd game in a row today.
Yeah.
Featuring Anish, all of them.
But this time, Anish is playing against it.
Yeah. Previous 2 times with the isolated pawn.
He might be feeling a bit confused. What's this? I'm not used to playing against this pawn.
Is this a novelty, Jovanka?
Well,
yeah.
You like this, Lawrence?
Well, I mean, I do. I think black is fine, but you've got to tread carefully. Again, a sample line could run. Knight takes bishop in the middle, but then you give white a bit of initiative, because then after knight takes knight, suddenly the knight is very loose on h5, and bishop b5 check is an annoying threat, so you probably have to bring the knight back to f6. And just to illustrate how bad things can get, after knight f6, let's say bishop b5 check, here you should probably block with the bishop, but let's say you did block with the knight, you run into a standard idea here, the move queen f3. Suddenly, white is threatening the f7 pawn, and if you block it with a move like, say, like queen e7, suddenly it's your b7 pawn that hangs, a move like knight takes d7, bishop takes d7, queen takes b7, and all of a sudden, black is in dire straits. So, of course, Anish far too strong to allow that, but that's the sort of thing that you could see happen with slightly more inexperienced players.
Yeah, and black decides, OK, no time for that. No, normally you want to get rid of the opponent's strong piece. Normally you want to get the bishop pair. That's very long-term factors, but short-term, you need to get castled. So very sensible move. He's one move away from safety, Anish. And then that stuff you showed there, Lawrence, it would no longer be relevant. And yeah, I think once he castles, he's got a very healthy position. I don't think he'll be unhappy at all with how the opening's gone, Anish Giri.
All right. One game has finished in round 15. It's a draw between Naroditsky and Mamedyarov. Naroditsky is knocked out, but it's been entertaining to follow him in the preliminaries. Mamedyarov, however, he is definitely ready for the knockout stage. He's played fantastic. And if you take a look at the current standings, then Mamedyarov is on 27 points. He could take second place, but if Gukesh and Erigaisi also wins in this round, they will also be on 27 points. And do you think Mamedyarov is the one no one wants to meet in the quarterfinals?
Yeah, I don't think anyone anyone wants to meet him in the tournament in general.
Yeah.
Mamedyarov is just on fire. He's checkmated so many of this field already.
Yeah.
Just in the prelims.
Yeah. And Anish Giri, he is also fighting to qualify. With a draw, he's going to be ready, but with a loss, Vidit, if he wins his game against David Anton in this round, then he will qualify. So it is between these two. The bar now slightly over to Anish's side.
Yeah. Wow. Arjun's
what
going
is that?
all out now. Jovanka, why are you surprised by that?
That just kind of came out of my mouth. I mean, I just thought he was going to castle to the right. I mean, this is it's brave, right? I'm going to temper my words and go, yeah, it's bold and unexpected, and I don't think it's going to work out.
It's going to lead to excitement for us, either way.
Yes.
And maybe he's playing the man. Maybe he knows Anish just needs a draw, content with a solid position, and he's saying, nope, it's going to be far from boring, this game. For Arjun, a win, draw, loss, it's basically the same. So castling opposite sides, he wants to attack the black king. But the white king feels the more vulnerable of the two, surely. What do you guys think?
Well, it's if Simon Williams was sitting here, he would be extremely happy with seeing that move. That's exactly the sort of move the Ginger GM would be looking to play. Playing the man, as you said, David, I think is very relevant here because, you know, Anish doesn't particularly love a dogfight, and Arjun is saying, I've qualified, I've got nothing to lose. Let's have a bit of a scuffle. And King B1, and already the move Bishop D7 is kind of it allows White to put the King on B1 easily, and I'm not a massive fan of it. And the bar also demonstrates that. And now, you know, I'm playing G4 next. I'm playing Knight E4 next. I've got all these springy kind of moves as White, and this could easily go wrong for Anish. This is not an easy position to play. You've got to be very precise.
I think you have to also throw caution to the wind if you're playing with the black pieces and just open lines.
Yeah.
Sack pawns.
Yeah.
David is channeling his inner Yovi.
Yeah, and later, I mean, there will be direct lines open towards the white king.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. But again, is this an Anish type of move? Is this what Giri thrives on? Attacking, especially in a situation where he's got half an eye on the tournament standings. Does he really want to be sacrificing pawns, gambling slightly? I have a feeling he's going to play quieter moves, maybe just bring the rook across, maybe just reroute the black knight before it gets hit. Yeah, and like Lawrence says, very natural moves for white. This pawn is stepping forward, gaining time. It's going to step further forward. It's going to maybe even blast open the black king. And also, it's very scary psychologically for Giri that he knows his opponent just doesn't care. His opponent just wants to go at him, wants a fight. Yeah, especially when it's a youngster, especially when it's a really talented one like Erigaisi, when he's in all-out attack mood. It looks like this is kind of a quiet move, just shuffling the king to a side, but it's basically he's fully prepared now to step forward.
Okay, so with the kings on opposite sides, we love that. Is this a game that most likely ends up with a winner?
Yes.
Oh.
I think a draw is very unlikely at this moment. Anish, maybe he'll find a way to swap off some pieces, and there we go. He plays the move I predicted. That's a very Giri type of move, just quiet, slowly improving a piece. Very sensible, but does it hit the essence of the position? Does it suit the needs of black's pieces? I mean, these guys are still very passive. This one's still offside. And now I'm expecting one of Lawrence's suggestions, either the knight in the centre or the pawn stepping forward.
Is this something you could end up getting in your chess boxing fight, Lawrence?
Who knows? I mean, I've got no idea what chess game I'm going to get with Aman. I would be very happy to get this as white against Aman because, you know, black is the one that has to play precisely, and when you've got very little time and you're getting punched in the face, it's maybe not that easy. Whereas the white moves come a little bit more naturally. Even the move Bishop G3, I had the corner of my was looking out the corner of my eye, so I'd be more than happy to have this as white in the.
But the bar likes it for black now, especially after that move.
Yeah, but
It kind of gets in the way of the pawns.
Yeah, it's a bit surprising.
I found it a very, very surprising move because it's almost like a positional move, which, you know, when you've initiated chaos, you don't step, oh, you know, it can be done, but you don't tend to kind of go, oh, hang on a second, let me just look after this piece.
Yeah, that's one thing. Okay, Anish, he is going for it.
Now he goes for my move. I wanted it one move earlier, but okay, you did it. Better late than never.
Yeah, and I was going to say that's one thing that English Grandmaster Nigel Short told me when I was very young. He said opposite side castling positions, no matter what the opening, if kings are on opposite flanks, don't retreat, don't waste time. It's like riding a bike. If you stop pedaling, you might just fall off. So, yeah, it's interesting that Arjun steps back and then Anish comes forward. So it's a bit like a boxing match. One side just trying to kind of keep the status quo, the other side not afraid to try and throw some punches.
yeah, but it might end up being one of those where it's a bit of a slugfest because there are boxing matches where you know, you're trying to look for angles and trying to touch and just outbox your opponent, and then there are other ones where you're both swinging, and this is getting into both swinging territory. Black attacking on the queen side, white looking at the king side. You know, sacrifices very soon become available, but I do like Anish's last move. I'm curious what the correct move here is. It's not coming to me immediately.
Do you get greedy and take a pawn, or do you just run away?
I don't think I don't think it's in my DNA to take that pawn. To be honest, that's just against my religion.
So it looks like a free pawn, Lawrence.
Yeah, but I just can't bring myself to open the B file here, lose time.
Oh my God, that is the only move
That secures.
Really?
that secures the not the advantage, but the equality. Everything else was just like much worse for white.
Okay.
So he had to roll the dice. Wow.
Yeah, he had to get greedy. Sometimes you need to kind of play the critical moves. You need to at least test your opponent's ideas to see if they work. And Anish, I thought he'd bring the queen out, but instead he moves his knight. So there's tension now between the bishops. If we see a bishop exchange, then black's queen would actually be ready to jump in, supported by the knight. Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you guys. Too many open files towards the black king. The rook can come in at some point. It's sorry, towards the white king. It's just so vulnerable. Imagine the queen ending up on this diagonal as well. If the black queen can somehow check, just give one check to the white king, it's game over. So already Arjun balancing on the edge, and Anish showing a side that we've wanted to see from him for a while.
Yeah.
Going on the attack. Even if he only needs a draw, he's playing on the front foot. He's good enough to do so, like Lawrence said earlier. And huge threats on the board, such as bringing the queen out, threatening checkmate on this square. White is the defender now. Arjun, will he regret that choice of castling on this flank? I'm not even sure what I would do, to be honest. It looks terrifying. Maybe you trade bishops, or I don't know whether you bring the knight to stop the black queen coming over, but it looks so ugly.
Yeah.
Okay, he drops his bishop back.
Yeah, and he covers the threatened A2 pawn. Yeah, I agree with you. It's ugly. But, I mean, so far he's surviving, and Erigaisi is in survival mode, and if he can just hold on every single move, then, OK, it will be OK for him. As you can tell by the bar, which says 0.0. But if I were playing this game, I would be terrified. And how many moves in? 16 moves. I would be thinking, oh, my goodness me, I might lose in less than 20 moves.
I would be worried the bar would say, like, -5 for black or something if I was in Arjun's shoes right now. I mean, the most obvious move to me would be bring the queen out. Again, some ideas against this pawn, but also some ideas of switching across and checking the white king on this vulnerable diagonal. Okay, Anish.
This is just my worst nightmare as white, having this position.
Defending.
Yeah, just all the open lines. But you still have to checkmate the guy. That's the problem. White is still alive. And has Anish got that attacking instinct in such a position? Of course he does.
Yeah. When he needs to, he's capable. But, OK, he's still got a decent amount of time as well. That's a good sign for all the Giri fans out there. It's just about whether Arjun can defend. And, OK, Giri not yet bringing his queen out. This is the move I'm expecting. Maybe there's others. Maybe you just reroute the knight. You have to at some point. It's just too loose over there. Maybe you improve the black bishop somehow. You could just put it on a decent diagonal. You could maybe throw in an annoying move, hit the rook. Trying to spitball some ideas. I don't really see anything as tempting as this move, bringing the queen out. But, OK, Giri looking for options. Let's see what he comes up with.
Yep. He is fighting to qualify Anish, but with a draw he's going to be ready, and but he will end up in 8th place with a draw, and he will then play Jan-Krzysztof Duda, playing some fantastic chess in this tournament in the quarterfinals. Duda is currently playing against Magnus, but he is definitely going to be on top of the table after the prelims. 28 points, that's a good score.
Very good.
Yeah.
We've seen Magnus amass, what is it, 30-something?
Yeah.
Low 30s, but anyway, I mean, anyone who wins the prelims has done very well. Duda bang in form.
Yeah.
Duda's the type of streaky player as well. If he's on form, just like he showed earlier in the season, he can win anything.
Wow.
And, he can beat the best. So Duda and Mamedyarov, I feel, two most impressive players so far.
Yeah, yeah.
Tournament.
Mamedyarov, he has already finished in this round on 27 points, currently in 2nd place. Gukesh and Erigaisi, if they win in this round, can also be on 27 points. So now the whole calculation starts for who will play who in the quarterfinals. Magnus Carlsen is currently in 6th place, and the 6th place plays the 5th place. Right, no, sorry, the 3rd place, of course. So right now, it's Gukesh Carlsen. Right now.
There you go.
That would be a good quarterfinal.
I would love to see that one.
Yeah, I agree.
Half of India would be watching that
Yeah, absolutely. And whilst the players are pondering their moves, it's an exciting, thrilling position. Well, I wanted to share with you a selfie from Female Nurse. So I was just going to ask you all before, what's the most exciting location that we've had people watch the show from?
I remember a boat.
A boat, yeah. We've had, like, mountains, desert. Well, Female Nurse is watching us from the zoo, along with the giraffes. And she says, I just don't want to miss watching. Yeah, you've got to multitask in these days. You know, you've got to watch the chess and then go visit the animals.
Yeah.
And those are seriously cool giraffes. 3.
And remember to ask them for predictions. Isn't that always in the zoo? Predictions for who wins, like the World Cup or whatever?
So, Female Nurse, please send us the animals' predictions.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear them.
What was it? It was an octopus, wasn't it?
He was very accurate.
He was very accurate.
Yeah.
What was his name?
Paul
the octopus.
And was that for the World Cup?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I remember I was gunning for, I think he predicted England would lose, and we did. And then there was maybe Argentina losing, and we did, and Argentina did. And I was like, Paul.
Yeah.
It's not happy with you.
I had a good streak. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So check with the giraffes as well. Who will win the Aimchess Rapid?
And meanwhile, 5 minutes in the tank for Anish Giri. He spent 5 minutes, nearly half his time on this one move. And yes, he's doing some calculation. That's understandable. I'm not sure it's the most practical thing, though. It looks like there's some natural moves, and white will have a bunch of replies no matter what you play. So what is he thinking about? Just bring the black queen out. Retreat a knight, just whatever you choose. I mean, this is the type of thing I would do, and then I would live to regret it in 10 moves' time. Just kind of spend 5 minutes on one move, and then later I'm like, oh, it's a really wild position. I need that time now. But, OK, what is Anish going to choose? Still thinking. Under 5 minutes now, and Arjun's going to be starting to get very confident. He's got an extra pawn, if he can cling onto it, as Jovanka mentioned. He's just going to win the game. So Anish needs to be fast, accurate, and practical. What's going on in his mind?
And he's closing his eyes, I think. Very focused, Anish.
Yeah, extremely focused. He must be calculating some long variation, but I'm not sure you need to right now. In a classical game, sure, spend 10 minutes here, but over 6 minutes, that's a very long think for rapid chess.
And you know what they say, long think, wrong think. What could he be calculating? I just don't see it. Just improve a piece.
Yeah, maybe he wants to, I was about to say, push this pawn to get the black light squared bishop into the game with a check. There's a massive threat on the board.
This feels so...
The computer says it doesn't
unnecessary, yeah, just so unnecessary.
But it's either very good or it's very bad. That's the question. That's the problem with this move. And Jovanka, you're right. Long think, wrong think. Long thinks always seem to end up in mistakes. They don't trust their instincts. And, OK, he pushes this pawn forward. Clear idea of a check. That is why he's opened up his bishop. And how can white refute this idea? This threat is deadly if it's not dealt with. First of all, you could take this pawn with a queen. You can actually take it 4 different ways. You can take, for example, with the knight as well. And after a bishop check, you can think about blocking this check, maybe with a knight of your own, but this feels very shaky for white. I guess the most natural would be to take with the white queen, just to stop the bishop using the square. It's now covered. What's Anish's plan here?
Guess is to carry on harassing the queen.
OK, you can attack it with the bishop, I guess. But then this knight is hanging.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what is his idea? This is the acid test of his move. Now he's 2 pawns down, his knight is attacked. You can take white's bishop off, but suddenly you open up the white rook and suddenly checkmating ideas against the black king. It's not one-way traffic anymore. I don't see it. Is his idea just to play really slow, maybe? Just push a pawn and reinstate this threat of a check? But it just feels so loose. You're gambling here. There's no guarantee that your opponent can't just find a way. For example, maybe this check isn't so effective. White could push a pawn, for example, and even if you get your dream world with a check, the white king can hide in the corner. Another check, yes, but the white king can hide again. Maybe there's a follow-up, maybe there isn't, but Anish, 4 minutes, 2 pawns down in a moment. Who knows what's going to happen? I like the idea behind the move. I like the spirit behind it, attacking, but... he's really gambling. And what's Anish doing? Let's go back to the players on the camera. He's making some kind of face. Is he smiling?
It almost looked like a smile. But is this basically just not very his style?
Yeah, it's not his style at all. And that's not to say it won't work. It does set significant practical problems for Erigaisi. Maybe in that variation that I was showing, maybe I've missed something there. But actually, I see another couple of ideas that were possible for black in that position. But OK, Erigaisi does take with the white knight.
Yeah. But this is a great move, right? Because bishop f5, check, knight e4.
That's the block.
Yeah, and then you just solidify that knight with a pawn.
With f3, and 2 pawns are 2 pawns. And this can go very badly now for Anish very quickly.
Oh, his fate is out of his hands. What happens if Anish loses? Someone needs to maybe start calculating the other results.
Yeah, and interestingly, Anton, because I was looking, had a great position, and he's absolutely botched it. He was completely winning, David Anton. Positionally, he was crushing, and now Vidit in with a chance. So things are very much in the balance now. We've got a very, very tense few minutes ahead.
Ooh.
And this is very tense for Anish Giri. Down low on the clock, 3 minutes, 2 pawns down, no follow-up. Arjun's just defended really nicely. He just took all the pawns. He's just refusing to believe the opponent. That's something we've mentioned in previous days. Don't necessarily trust your opponent on their moves. Sometimes you have to call them out and say, yeah, OK, I'll be greedy, prove yourself. And that's what Arjun's doing to Anish, and Anish is panicking. Those 2 white knights are holding everything together.
3 minutes left for Anish Giri, fighting for his life, not only in the game, but in the tournament. If he loses, then Vidit can take the place in the quarterfinals with a win. He still has to win that game, though. So Anish, it's not over if he loses this, but it's looking dangerous right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's unpredictable, right? The Vidit Anton game. And in Anish's mind, he's thinking, OK, worst case scenario, Vidit wins. This is the moment. This is where it all could go wrong.
And Vidit has just played a bomb of a move in his game. So now he's, in my opinion, big favourite to do something there.
A bomb in a good way?
Like a bomb in a good way, yeah. Great move. Great move.
Right. Yeah, do update us on that game as well.
Yeah, so... Yeah, Anish thinking, oops. He's probably thinking, I didn't need to do that. Yeah. That was a bit unnecessary.
It's tough for Anish now because he's trying to calculate, of course, but in the back of his mind, he's always thinking, oh, the tournament situation. Again, this was so unnecessary. Remember yesterday, taking those draws. It might not be enough now. And I'm trying to find a move. I can't see a good follow-up for him. Just 2 pawns down.
I mean, he just has to develop some pieces. You know, just throw a queen to the left side of the board, centralise. No, you can't even centralise a rook.
No. Bring the queen out this way, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's a bit random.
Eye up this pawn.
What else to do? OK.
F3.
Putting pressure on this knight. This pin is his kind of saving grace, his hope. But as you mentioned there, Lawrence F3, supporting the knight, defending easily. You're running out of ammo.
Yeah, OK, but, you know, you could carry on fighting. Yeah, so he puts his queen on a square. It's an open line. It looks active. Doesn't have any purpose behind it. I'm not claiming that much.
It's the type of move that looks good but doesn't do anything.
Nope.
And Arjun will start bringing this rook into the game at some point, maybe retreat this bishop at some point.
Yeah.
Black has no threats.
Absolutely no threats whatsoever. But, you know, still active pieces, and active pieces can cause problems. The next step would be perhaps relocating the knight, moving it to the D5 square.
For example, yeah. And now you have a massive threat if white is careless. Just to show a couple of pins, this would be a killer, knight check. The white knight can't take this piece because of a pin, the pin on this diagonal, and the white pawn can't take because of a pin. So still some tricks in the position. Yeah, you're right, Jovanka. We should always stay positive. If we were in Anish's shoes, yes, we're 2 pawns down, but we have to look for resources. And Arjun might be nervous as well because white's king is still more vulnerable than the black king. Oof, it's so tense.
This is super tense. One more game has finished. It's a loss in the final round for Abdusattorov against Vincent Keymer. So Vincent Keymer, he finishes off on 19 points. That is currently 1 point outside top 8. So close, but he's not going to play in the knockout stage. Abdusattorov, he is ready for the knockout stage, but it's been a tough finish for him to the preliminaries. Hasn't won too many games and lost quite a few. Lost the 2 final games today, Abdusattorov. And let's see who he's going to face in the knockout stage.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Arjun, very natural move, bringing the white rook into the game. And, OK, Anish Giri planting a knight in the centre. Similar to what you were predicting, Jovanka?
Yeah.
Now it's not clear whether that knight jump with a check is a threat, but the pieces are moving towards the white king.
And the next step is just to randomly push the a-pawn and see what damage it can do. I mean, it's very hopeful chess, but it doesn't matter. And you have to remember that Erigaisi, with 4 minutes on the clock, isn't going to be able to sit down and completely work out all the complications.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Erigaisi, it's not 100% easy to just consolidate and simplify.
Can you just play a3 here, or is this just way too ridiculous? I mean, I was trying to make king a1 work. He plays bishop b3, which is also fairly... But
You want
a3...
to maybe go into the corner or attack this knight.
Like, a3, does it just win a piece?
Did you see the bar?
The bar's getting confused.
The bar's getting confused now.
Yeah, I think you're right, Lawrence. Maybe you're just attacking this knight, and this knight has to stay defending its other knight, and one of the
It
two
looks
pieces...
scary, because knight c3 check actually forces b takes c3, and then you've got knight d3 discovered check. But actually, after just some king a2, is it okay? But you can totally understand why Arjun didn't play it, and maybe bishop b3 is a better move, not objectively, but practical terms, yeah.
So he's blocked this b file.
Oh!
Wow, Anish Giri going on the attack. Rook into c3. Not sure what it threatens, to be honest.
Yeah.
Maybe taking this bishop. But just to show the idea, if pawn takes rook, then again, a family fork, a royal fork hitting the king, queen, rook, and due to a pin, the knight can't capture. Jovanka, you think there's a threat here?
Yeah, the rook takes bishop that you mentioned. That's a big threat.
For example, if white just plays a nothing move, then rook takes bishop. And you creep in via the a2 square. Checkmate coming.
The king is going to have to go exploring the centre, and no king wants to do that. I mean, how do you defend against this rook takes bishop?
Very good question. So this is the current position. Rook takes bishop, getting rid of white's best defender. Maybe that's the plan all along. Erigaisi just seems so calm, though. He's like, yeah, you played a cool move, dropped a bomb on my head. I don't care. I'm going to react. I'm not really sure how he's going to react.
Maybe he has to retreat a knight?
OK, maybe retreat the knight back to attack the black queen. And the black queen will move, I guess, somewhere. OK, he doesn't go for this. He goes the other way. He goes in with the white knight with a fork, but suddenly it's getting really complicated. The bishop could just take this knight. The whole idea is that white's knight is no longer pinned. White's knight would step back and win material.
And after
What's the idea?
Queen a5, exactly.
Plays it.
Yeah.
Still the idea of getting rid of... Oh, sorry, my arrows. Getting rid of this bishop. And coming in. OK, you're surprised, Lawrence. Bishop takes knight.
If queen takes d5, you can just go b takes c3 and you defend laterally.
Yeah, you defend this pawn across the board and... wow, Giri... Carry on, Jovanka.
No, I was just going to say, look what Giri did. He just flicked in a little intermediate move.
Yeah, attacking the white queen. It's just chaos right now. White is currently 2 pawns and a piece up, but the queen is under fire, the bishop's under fire, the knight's under fire, and the white king not safe. So who can do the maths there? White is 5 points up on the board, but chaos. Just chaos.
Chaos, OK. Wow.
But it's definitely going in Anish's favour, these past few moves. I mean, fair play to him, because he found some fantastic resources. Rook c3 was a beautiful move. Rook c2 is a beautiful move. Now probably you have to play queen takes c2, because if you... What are the moves? If you play queen f1, just queen takes d5?
Feels wrong if you run away with the white queen and leave that black rook alive.
And it actually looks like now Richard Rapport is losing in the final round to Gukesh. And if he does, and Anish wins this game, then Anish will actually take 7th. A lot can change in just a few moves here.
Yeah, and this is why we love seeing Anish kind of take risks, because he's capable. He's so good when he wants to be. And meanwhile, the standings.
Yeah. It is Vidit hoping Anish loses in this round and winning his own game to take that crucial 8th place. But if Anish plays a draw or wins this, he will take that final place.
Yeah, so anything could still happen. And the more I look at it, Lawrence, the more I think you're right. White has to give up a queen.
It's the only move I checked.
It's the only move. Maybe we can see the Stockfish suggestions, see what the difference is between the best move and all the rest. Arjun now down at 1.5 minutes, and wow, that's a massive difference.
Whoa.
If he doesn't take that black rook with the white queen, giving it up, he can almost resign, just losing. And, yeah, he doesn't have the prompt that we do, the evaluation bar, but process of elimination, it does look sensible. Is he going to find it, do you think?
With 1 minute left on the clock.
Even if you find it, I mean, the continuation is going to be tricky too.
I mean, there's so many pieces along that line where things get captured. And he does
play the best
find
move.
it.
Yeah, and now, okay, let's do a quick count. White has a rook, 2 knights, and 2 pawns for Black's queen. Who's good at maths? I need the calculator again. And
it's a lot of material.
It's a lot of material, but White's pieces are dropping off, and there goes 1 knight. So now it's a rook, knight, and 2 pawns for Black's queen.
But now at least you
Roughly
get
level.
to consolidate slightly. Yeah, bishop b3, the knight comes to c3, cemento, as our good friend Peter Lecco would say, and
White's king runs away as well.
yeah, it's like rook e5 comes quickly. You know, things can happen here for White. You can be fine.
So after all this adventure, you think this is going to end up in a draw?
It could easily be a draw. It could easily be a draw, but with both of them on such short time, I think there's still 1 or 2 more surprises left.
Yeah, at least 1 or 2 more.
Yeah.
It feels like. Okay, Anish attacks the white rook. Very logical. Let's ignore the evaluation bar unless there's a massive swing, because it's that type of position. It's so hard for a human to navigate right now. Material imbalances, when it's queen versus pieces, that's when accuracy just goes out the window. And Anish dropping back his queen.
Yeah, he's getting ready to perhaps push the a-pawn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
White's king's got to run away at some point. It's too far out in the open.
Yeah.
Oof, what a position. What a game as well. I thought Arjun would just lock this down, just say, OK, I've qualified. He went all-out attack, and Anish has met fire with fire.
It's very cool. But what is the most likely result right now then? The bar is very much in the middle.
Who knows?
I don't think it will be a draw. I just can't see it being a draw somehow.
I can see all 3 results being possible. And, well, Erigaisi retreats the knight, trying to hold the position together. Oh, the bar did not like that at all.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like a natural move. What does Anish have?
Yeah, maybe there's something immediate, maybe not, but the black pieces are coming in. Black's rook can improve, Black's bishop can give a check on the light squares. White king not entirely safe. You could even, OK, Black's rook could, as Stockfish points out, just swing across, put pressure on that white knight. That might be the best move. It just feels to me that the momentum is always going to go in Black's favour. As long as you don't trade off too many pieces, White's king is still a target. 10
seconds.
Oh, he does.
And he does build his position by improving the rook.
Yeah. Anish has played great, actually, since, well, I mean, the whole game, to be honest, since he was given a chance to attack.
We do have another result here. So Gukesh has won his game against Richard Rapport to gain all 3 points. So that means if Anish wins this game, he's actually going to take 7th place. And it also means Gukesh currently is in 2nd place. He goes past Mamedyarov. He did win their game here in the preliminaries.
Yeah.
Tense moment. Knight d5. OK.
OK, attacking the black queen. Where do you put her? Do you move her the whole way across? Maybe give a check? The white king still on that diagonal. OK, no, bishop check first. And maybe you could even start threatening some checkmates. The white king vulnerable on the back rank.
It's very tempting.
Yeah, it's very tempting to take that white pawn in the center, but it doesn't work. There's a trap. OK, the black queen runs away. Just to show maybe one cool trick that was that Arjun was setting for his opponent. He was trying to bait Anish into taking this pawn, trying to lure away the rook with a back rank checkmate. For example, rook takes queen would have ended in disaster, but you have to look for counter checks. And here we would have seen white give up a rook with a check, distracting black's rook. And now the queen is safe to take because this square is covered. You can't check because it's covered by the bishop.
And by the way, what's happened in the game looks like a fantastic result for Arjun. He's managed to get a bishop in a lovely outpost on c5. He's now got a passed d-pawn. He can win a pawn on b4 as well. This looks very, very good for Arjun.
And now the rook is on the 7th line.
Massive threat.
Oof. Huge threat.
So many turns. It's turned again.
And let's not forget that white has a nice pawn in the centre. That isolated queen's pawn can be pushed.
Yeah.
And after bishop e6, a really nice move. What about rook e1 here? You can't take the bishop because of mate down the back, and then you're threatening even the move rook takes e6. Well, d5 might also be good.
Yeah. Kicking the bishop away, I think it is good.
might also...
Versus 7 advantage for Erigaisi.
Yeah.
The pawn is coming. If you move the bishop, it's just racing down the board. Wow.
And Vidit has
And we have a win for Vidit against David Anton. That means Anish Giri, he has to get a draw in this game to have a chance to qualify. A loss, and he's out.
6 seconds. No, he's toast here.
Look at his face as well. He knows it.
He knows it. D7 is just curtains. Absolute heartbreak. And we've been saying the whole day, is he going to rue that early draw when you're slightly better and you can press against a much weaker opponent?
Giri resigns.
He's out.
It's
gutting.
Over. Wow, that went all the way down to the final moments. Anish Giri is knocked out of the Aimchess Rapid. Vidit takes the final spot in the quarterfinals. Oh, look at Anish. This must be devastating for him. He played some draws yesterday that affected this result. He is knocked out. He must be so disappointed right now looking at this. Yeah, taking a look at the game, he is knocked out of the Aimchess Rapid. And we have to take a look at this game. Here is today's Lisoveta learning point.
So in must-win situations, you have to take risks. And in this game, it was full of gambles by both players. This position was already very complicated. Arjun Erigaisi has castled on the queen side, very open for the white king. And Anish, despite losing later on, he went for the right idea. He sacrificed a pawn, opening up lines towards the opponent's king. The white bishop had to capture this pawn. Again, when you want to win, take up your opponent on their challenges. And it was only maybe later in this position that Anish started to go slightly astray, giving up a second pawn, pushing a pawn in the center when he could have just improved his pieces. Maybe, for example, brought the queen out. But after this had happened, he kept throwing pieces towards the white king. Yes, he lost a pawn. He's 2 pawns down now. But after bringing his queen forward and later on, for example, bringing his rook forward, this is the key move by Anish Giri, we saw a wild game. When you want to win, this was a great example. Throw pieces towards your opponent's king, and more often than not, you will be rewarded.
All right, all games have finished, you guys. It all finished at the same time. Can we bring up the standings to have the final results, the 8 players making it through to the knockout stage? Wow, that was a dramatic finish to the preliminaries. And here they are. Vidit takes that final spot, winning in the last round to get 21 points. He knocks out Anish Giri, who is stuck on 20, losing to Arjun Erigaisi. Richard Rapport on 22 points takes 7th place. We have Abdusatorov, Carlsen, Erigaisi, Mamedyarov, Gukesh, and Duda also in the quarterfinals. And we're joined by Vidit, ready for quarterfinals. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's actually my first time to reach the quarterfinals after playing so much. It's good to know how it feels like.
And what a dramatic way to do it, winning a must-win situation in the last round, and also Anish losing. How do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thrilled that I'm in quarterfinals, and actually, it was completely unexpected. In fact, I had already made some plans for tomorrow, which was not related to chess. So I was not expecting it. So thanks to Arjun, giving me this chance.
I was wondering, because I know you guys have a great team spirit in the Indian team, if you guys had been chatting before that final round, if you were hoping that he would give the help that you needed.
No, we did not chat, but of course I was hoping that he would, I mean, it was not in my control. So I was just thinking about my game mostly. And it was a bonus that I got to, make it into top 8. So, I was just focusing on my own game because it was not easy to win on demand as well.
Definitely. That must be some of the hardest you can do in chess, to win on demand. And also in the 14th round, it was a quick draw. You played with the black pieces against Richard Rapport, and you seemed very surprised as well, because obviously you did not hope for a draw in that game. What happened?
Yeah, I mean, I knew that I'm lacking behind in points, and I need to, but I did not know the exact details. I did not know that Richie had won the previous game probably, and draw is good enough for him. So I was not expecting, and Richie is the last player you would expect to force a draw. So yeah, it was a kind of a shocker because it made my chances even less. But in the end, it worked out. But at that moment, I was completely shocked. Maybe in hindsight, I could have chose a better opening.
Well, no matter what happened, you are ready for the quarterfinals to play Jan-Krzysztof Duda, who finishes on top of the table. You had a good winning streak in the end here, winning 3 out of the 4 last games. So how do you feel before the quarterfinals?
It's a new feeling because I always played the prelims, and this quarterfinals I like more because you have to prepare against only one opponent, not 4 people. So that's a welcome change. And against Duda in the tournament, I had a good position, which I ruined. So I'm hoping tomorrow I can, play better even in the last moments and convert my chances.
We wish you best of luck. Very happy for you to make it to the quarterfinals, Vidit.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us. We're also joined by Magnus Carlsen, of course, ready for the quarterfinals, finishing off with a big win against Jan-Krzysztof Duda. Congrats, Magnus.
Thank you.
How was that game? Duda's played fantastic in this tournament, so how were you able to win it?
I don't know. I think there were some random tactics at the end, and then they kind of worked out for me. Could have gone either way.
And we saw earlier today, you posted on Instagram, been out skiing. Are you feeling better now?
Yeah, I'm feeling a little bit better today, so it's improving.
Okay, that's nice to hear. Now, it's going to be Arjun Erigaisi in the quarterfinals, repetition from the final. What do you think about that?
No, I mean that's fun. He's certainly one of the stronger players. Seeing as he qualified quite comfortably again, but I'll hope to elevate my level of play.
Yeah. Do you feel that your form is sort of rising? If you are also feeling a little better?
No, I played shit today as well, but hopefully I can play better.
All right. Magnus, thank you for joining us. Good luck in the quarterfinals.
Thank you.
Very critical of himself. We're also joined by Anish Giri. Wow, that was a dramatic finish. Anish, how are you right now?
Yeah, I played so many of these tournaments that by now I've experienced the multiple ways of not qualifying that exist. Yeah, today was another one. I think maybe it's hard, of course, I was kind of maybe too much looking at the standings in the last few rounds. I should have probably been strategizing less and just playing more. But I don't know. I think I should have taken more risks with the white pieces maybe yesterday and today. But I thought that the way I play should be more than sufficient to qualify. But the last round, somehow things got out of control. And although I think I had a good position at various points, but it was never obvious, and it got out of hand, and I had too little time. And in the end, didn't make it.
Are you annoyed then by a quick draw against Richard yesterday and that draw against Naroditsky?
No, with Richard I was black, so that's okay. I didn't expect him to do that either. I think that was a good thing. With Naroditsky, of course, I was regretting it already yesterday because obviously I didn't realize I was better. But I think it should have been anyway enough, but somehow it wasn't. Hard to say. I think that maybe subconsciously I was kind of playing it a bit more safe because I missed out on these qualifications a couple of times already, and I didn't want to do it again this time. I wanted to be smart about it and qualify sort of by force, but it's always difficult because if you try to strategize, then things can go out of hand, and then like in the last round, everything can go against it. So maybe I should have just done what I usually do, just play all the games without looking back, and then I would have probably scored more points. Also, with the way the system is, if you win 2 games, it's like you made 6 draws, yeah? So basically, I should have probably played more ambitiously with both colors in the last 6 rounds.
Now, we are very used to seeing you go through Anish. It's been maybe a little bit of an up and down 2022 for you. How will you summarize the year?
Yeah, it's far from over though, the year. True. But so far, yeah, I think last year was a little better. I think I had higher peaks. I think I've beaten, I won this Magnus Invitational tournament, which was nice. I think Candidates was also last year. I think I was also playing there pretty well at some point. But this year, I think I've had an okay performance in the tour, although the year before was better for sure. So judging by those standards, it wasn't so great. I think I missed out on a couple of qualifications very narrowly already in this season. I think maybe 3 times, which is not nice. But I've played well at Olympiad, and I mean, it was okay. I didn't play too much classical. I'm hoping to play much more classical tournaments next year. But in terms of online Rapid, in terms of the tour, for sure, it was better last time. But though last time, I have to say, it was really exceptionally good for me. I managed to win this Magnus Invitational, and I've been in the final, also at a couple of events, the Chessable Masters and so on. So that was really quite exceptional. This year also, the field got stronger. I think we have more young players. And even though maybe the average rating is not has not improved much, the strength definitely has, because most of these youngsters, as you see, they qualify, while the outsiders from the last season didn't qualify at all. They were all at the bottoms. So I think the tour became stronger. And if you look at the players, you've got, let's say, Magnus, you've got a player like Duda, you've got like I don't know, by the way, how they qualify these youngsters. I just look at their games. They always look kind of messy, and then somehow in the end they qualify by like 5 points margin. I don't know how it happens, but they always qualify.
Yeah,
I think they are much more used to creating fights, because they're in all these murky fights, because they've played a lot of opens recently. So they are like really good at handling this messy business, and then they score much more wins. And even though they score some losses as well, at the end of the day they just outperform. Well, me in particular.
Well, is it something you can take inspiration in? How these youngsters are?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. You have to learn, but it's hard. Of course, I've already, compared to last year, my results have been with a lot more wins and losses, because I'm trying to roll the dice a little more. But it was hard. Like, again, this time I was kind of looking at the standing, and it's kind of hard to understand the standing, because I'm used to seeing the standings in the traditional way. And usually, if you are up by a lot and there are a few rounds to go, then you can sort of just be solid and cruise towards the end. But here, of course, if somebody wins 2 games in a row already, they're completely back. So maybe I should have just, I should have not paid attention to the standing, perhaps. Although anyway, you can always get unlucky. I mean, last time I did some unnecessary losses, and I thought I will avoid that, because last time I won 5, but I think lost 4. So I thought last time, looking at the standing and at what happened, I thought that, okay, maybe I had overdone the risk management. Maybe I should still go back to my usual self and play a bit more solid. But this time I missed out because I was too solid, so it's hard to understand what I should do. I think I should stop strategizing and just play chess.
Always a good idea. Anish, we hope we get to see you in the tour final as well. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, Anish Giri is knocked out. It is Vidit who makes it through, and Vidit will play Jan-Krzysztof Duda in the quarterfinals, because he is the winner of the preliminaries. Congrats, Jan-Krzysztof.
Hello, thank you.
I know you finished off with a loss against Magnus, but overall, your performance in the preliminaries, how do you feel about it?
Yes, I think, of course, I'm very satisfied with my result and with winning the group. Overall, I think I played on pretty high level, and relatively there was like, it wasn't that random as it usually is. So I think today I was a little bit unlucky, to be honest. Actually, I was the game against Grandelius was very bad. I mean, I was in control most of the time, but somehow in critical moments I was losing it, and against Magnus, to be honest, thought I was winning by force, and actually was very surprised to learn that it was holding for him. The thing was that I could have kept the knight if I had played 92 instead of rook c8, what I did, but I was losing my pawns on the queen side, so, and it was kind of okay for him, which as said was I mean, it's very surprising to me, because I believed I was winning by force, basically.
All right. Now, your performance here, obviously because Prague is not playing in this tournament, probably takes you to second place on the tour standings. And even if Magnus has a big lead on the tour standings overall, you are the only one with a chance to take that #1 spot away from him if you win a bunch here and also the final, and if you also win a bunch in the tour finals. Is that at all something you're thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, I can only focus on my chess and, I mean, to do everything within my power to play good chess and be successful. And I think that, to be honest, that Magnus lead is, I mean, so high that it will be very difficult to overtake him in the final outcome. But yeah, it's nice that, I mean, only I can possibly be a challenge for him.
Yeah, it must be nice to be in that situation. And the quarterfinals tomorrow against Vidit, who barely made it through. What's your experience playing with Vidit?
Yeah, to be honest, usually I've been very, kind of very successful against him. I mean, I think I played far more games with black, and in most of the games I was pressing him. He was holding like some draws, he was losing some games. Also, I won very crucial match against him in the World Cup, which was a very huge win for me. But for some reason, I've lost more games than won on chess 24. So it's kind of course, I mean, he's very, very strong player, very strong opposition. So yeah, I think it will be. I mean, I hope it will be very interesting match to follow, and it will be a lot of fun as well.
We are definitely looking forward to it. Big congratulations on a big performance so far, and good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Jan-Krzysztof, Duda. Jens up on top of the table in the preliminaries. And let's take a look at the quarterfinals coming up tomorrow. Duda against Vidit. Erigaisi against Carlsen. Mamedyarov against Abdusatorov. Gukesh against Rapport. So, Jovanka, who are you looking the most forward to?
Oh, it has to be Erigaisi against Magnus Carlsen. You know, I want to see rematch on many levels. You know, rematch for the Julius Baer Generation Cup, but also the preliminary where Arjun won. I think it's going to be incredibly exciting. Yeah. I can also see on Twitter that everyone is going crazy. They're so excited that Vidit is through to his first quarterfinals.
He's a big fan favorite in India as well, along with all the other Indians, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's currently world number 23 classical as well. I mean, he's very much staying in touch with the young guns that are here, Gukesh and Erigaisi. As I said before, I think he's a fantastic ambassador for chess. He's got a lot of fans, and it's great to see him in there. He was 8% to go through before that last round. Yeah. So, as we say in poker, he hit a 2-outer. He had 2 cards to hit, and he hit 1 today. But you know, he fully deserved it. He played some inspiring chess, and Anish, as he said in his interview, he rues his decision. He regrets the early draw. He regrets playing too cautiously, and you can see he understands that in these kinds of tournaments, he has to take a few more risks when it's 3 points for a win. So I think we are going to see an adjustment from Anish in the very near future. Yeah,
and also, again, Magnus and Erigaisi, it was a huge just knockout win for Magnus in the final of Julius Baer Generation Cup. But Erigaisi won in the preliminaries here, and Magnus hasn't been top shape. So what do you expect from that one?
Yeah, I think it's actually going to be very close, maybe even going to those playoffs. We've seen throughout chess history these big rivalries. Often one player starts with domination, but as soon as the other one gets one win, things can turn around. So, yeah, it's hard to predict all those matchups tomorrow.
It's going to be fun quarterfinals. Lawrence, thank you so much for being in the studio with us in the preliminaries.
And thank you.
We wish you best of luck in your chess boxing fight.
Thank you very much.
We will keep talking about that, though. It's coming up on December 11th. That's a huge event in Los Angeles. It's going to be a lot of fun. And quarterfinals will also be a lot of fun. So we'll see you guys again tomorrow. Bye for now.